Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak.
It's Thursday, March 21st, 2019. This is your award-winning Gitmo Nation Media Assassination, episode 1122.
This is No Agenda.
Vying for our own Cronkite Award and broadcasting live from the capital of the drone, Star State, here in downtown Austin, Tejas, in the Cludio in the morning, everybody. I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where I note that on this day in 1617, the real Pocahontas died. I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's Crackpot and Buzzkill in the morning.
Well, thank you for that reading from the Farmer's Almanac.
Exactly. I have more.
That's okay. I believe you. Every show.
You know
did
today is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination?
How's that going?
Well, I don't know how well it's going, but you'd think with all the racial discrimination complaining going on that somebody would have mentioned this factoid to the public at large.
By whose proclamation is that? That's always what's important.
I don't care.
Well,
today, by the way, in 1621, was the last Mayflower passenger who came ashore at Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Mm. And who was that?
Bill.
Bill? Did you say Bill?
You know, on this day in 1790, Thomas Jefferson reported to President Washington as his new Secretary of State. And this took place in New York City, which I guess is where they were running the country from.
Mm-hmm. New Amsterdam.
In fact, in New York City in 1946, the United Nations established temporary headquarters at Hunter College.
Mm. Well, Tuesday in the Netherlands, while we're on the topic of trivia, Wednesday, yesterday was the big election. Well, not really the big election. This is the first house, which is in a way comparable to our Senate. So you have, and also kind of, I guess, the way the House of Lords would work. So you have the lower house, you've got like our House of Representatives, but then you have the Senate, and then so both houses have to pass something to get it through.
Sure.
And then 2 days before, there was a killing in Utrecht in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Which is, well, the information is obviously very confusing, but the fact that it came just before the elections was noticeable, at least. In particular, all political parties but one decided to stop campaigning. I guess there's it's like it's not sensitive enough to stop campaigning. Only one party said, no. Now is the time when we need to be talking about issues, and that was the Freedom for Democracy Party, who pretty much swept the elections.
Because they kept campaigning.
Yeah, well, who knows? But this is I think they build a center-right, which means they're kind of like Geert Wilders, except they don't have the same perceived hatred for Islam. Which makes them the perfect party, is what I was thinking. Because, people may agree with what Wilders has to say, but he's been painted as very, ultra right-wing, crazy, Nazi, quadroon.
Well, it's his hair.
It doesn't help. His accent doesn't help, even though it's a Dutch accent. It's just it's not a high Dutch accent, which the Freedom for Democracy Party guy, he's like a elitist almost, the way he sounds. So he's.
Yeah, I think you want that accent.
Yeah, you want that kind of accent. You want the perfect, center right. And then you have this happen, which got a lot of people nervous, and it's still kind of unclear what happened. Other than that, 3 people were killed on the tram, and I think 9 or 10 others in Holland, ladies and gentlemen. But they don't know if it's. I guess there's enough evidence that shows that it probably was a terrorist attack, but then there was all kinds of news stories that this guy's sister-in-law had cheated on his brother, and it was an honor killing, and anyone who helped her while he was shooting at her got killed as well. Not that makes it much better than a terrorist attack. But we probably won't know. It'll take forever for them to get a report out. We're still waiting for the Malaysian Air report, how it was shot down over Ukraine, or a real report. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. That ain't coming.
I don't think so either. But interesting, there's a lot of comparisons today to this Freedom for Democracy Party to the LPF, which is the Lijst Pim Fortuyn. He's the politician who was assassinated 2 weeks before the election, just at the turn of the century. And his party won posthumously, but of course it turned into total shit. You had no leader. You got all these idiots who were running the party. So things are changing in the Netherlands. We'll see how that goes.
It won't.
Well, what do you mean it won't? It won't go? It'll go in one way or the other.
Yeah, it'll go the old way.
Meaning?
It's not. I don't think you're going to see much change. There's too many. I think it's already too late.
Oh, I sure hope it. I hope it's better for him. I don't know. I don't think it's too late. It may be too late for Brexit, though. This is getting funny. Finally.
Well, it's not too late for the Zephyr because it's going by as we speak.
So
with 3 engines.
Apparently now we're looking for an extension of the March 29th detail. I say the we as in royal we. We're looking for an extension of the March 29th date. And this seems to be amenable to the European Council. Here's Donald Tusk. He is the current president of the European Council.
In the light of the consultations that I have conducted over the past days, I believe that a short extension will be possible. But it will be conditional on a positive vote on the withdrawal agreement in the House of Commons. The question remains open as to the duration of such an extension. Prime Minister May's proposal of the 30th of June, which has its merits, creates a series of questions of a legal and political nature. At this time, I do not foresee an extraordinary European Council. If the leaders approve my recommendations and if there is a positive vote in the House of Commons next week, we can finalize and formalize the decision on the extension in a written procedure.
So what he's saying is, look, if you guys can come up with a third vote that in Parliament that will, make sense and will be, and basically says, we want to move this to June, then we can consider that. But Speaker Bercow, has thrown a wrench into the works.
If the government wishes to bring forward a new proposition that is neither the same nor substantially the same as that disposed of by the House on the 12th of March, this would be entirely in order. What the government cannot legitimately do is to resubmit to the House the same proposition or substantially the same proposition as that of last week, which was rejected by 149 votes. This ruling should not be regarded as my last word on the subject. It is simply meant to indicate the test which the government must meet in order for me to rule that a third meaningful vote can legitimately be held in this parliamentary session.
Order. I wonder if he just...
I'm glad you got that clip.
Just at the end of everything he says, maybe he just says order. Darling, what are we having for dinner tonight? Order.
Well, this is a problem for the government, Theresa May.
Yeah, she has to come up with something completely new or substantially new.
What she was going to do, and Bercow put the kibosh on it, was threaten that we're going to do a no deal, let's vote again.
Yeah.
Threaten that I'm going to shoot somebody, let's vote again. They just you can't keep bringing, for obvious reasons, you just can't keep bringing the same exact bill. In fact, as far as the Attorney General is concerned, it's the same bill as they first voted down. Only
It's pretty much the same.
Things that didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So this would be the third vote on the same thing. But meanwhile, they have to renegotiate with the EU, and the EU, all the EU has done is give them time until now. We get 3 more months of this misery. These people are out of control.
Well, so first she has to come up with some kind of proof that it can actually, that it has a chance in Parliament if the EU wants to get on board. At least that's what it sounded like.
Well, it sounds like to me, no. She has to come up with a whole new deal,
yes,
which means that she has to go back to the EU and beg them for mercy. Although I think she got snookered this last time, at least according to the way the Attorney General saw this, the Brexit deal. It was fundamentally no different than the first go-around, which was soundly rejected.
So how do we get from here to a new referendum, which is what we've been expecting?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
But how do we get from where we are? Does it have to be panic, like it's going to be a horrible, messy ordeal if we don't decide to check one more time?
I think that's what's going to be a safety vote.
Ooh,
or
a
they're going to call it, of course, they're going to call it, they rename things.
Vote.
I got a couple of renaming.
I like this. I like safety vote. That sounds good.
A safety vote would be one way of putting it, but they already have it dubbed the people's vote.
Yes, right.
Although the first time was the people's vote too, but they never called it that. I think a safety vote would be good.
It also dehumanizes everybody. From people's vote to safety vote. It takes away the key word.
We want to make sure we don't want to hurt anyone.
It takes away. Well, we also want to make sure people don't think that it's actually their vote. It's not from the people. It's for safety.
So they're going to have to find. This will be fun. You know they're going to come up with something creative.
They've got to. They've got to. What a mess.
Why don't they? There's a bunch of backbenchers, as they like to be called, who are all in for a no deal Brexit. Just get out and use the WTO as your foundation for world trade.
Yeah, which I think is Article 24 or something like that. It's Article 24 of some muckety muck Illuminati thing that says here's the deal if we go through the WTO. It's like a guideline, I think.
Yeah.
That just says everyone can trade with each other. Shut up.
Yeah. It's another world organization that is, in this case, an exit strategy for them.
Why is that not discussed this much?
It's been discussed on and off. They don't want to discuss it because it's because they don't want to leave the EU. That's why.
The Who, I guess, are performing in some stadium, and they were interviewed for the breakfast TV. And you know how they are with Brexit. It's like, we won't have any electricity. We'll have nothing to eat, no bread, no milk. We're all going to die. And of course, they pose this to Roger Daltrey as well.
Brexit looks like it's getting further and further away. Is it going to be bad for British rock music?
No, we don't do the rock business. What's it called? What's to do with rock business?
Are they tour in Europe?
Oh dear, as if we didn't tour in Europe before the f***ing EU. If you want to sign up to be ruled by a f***ing mafia, you do it. Like being governed by FIFA.
If you want to be governed by the mafia, like FIFA.
Yeah, that's what
I wonder
if... a very funny clip.
Yeah. Yeah, as if we couldn't tour in the EU before, or in Europe before the EU. Yeah. And that's kind of, I know a lot of guys who think and speak like that. They're so sick and tired of it.
Well, it's about time.
No, well, it's not going to make any difference. I don't know. We'll see. They're in big trouble. I'd say the empire is done.
Hell.
Happy to hear your chair is creaking more than normal.
I'm going to get it fixed this week.
No, don't get it fixed. Maintain it. Just keep the little squeak in there. You're actually going to take it for repairs? You're kidding me.
I never said that. I said I'm going to fix it.
You said I'm going to get it fixed.
Well, if I said that was an error. An error in elucidation.
Yes, indeed.
Want to talk a little bit about this 737 situation?
Yeah, and I want to say something right off the bat that I based a lot of what I said on the last show on a YouTube timestamp of February 12th, 2018. And after a lot of research back and forth on noagendasocial.com, we not only found out that my timeline was off, but as we investigated the YouTube video again, it mysteriously moved to November 18th, 2018, the timestamp. So a rookie mistake on my part to believe a timestamp ultimately from the Googles. So apologies for that. But it seems that greed and I guess Boeing has just been skirting around even since the next generation 737, trying to save money by not jacking up the price for parts that are made by humans, for not wanting to alarm people with all kinds of extra training that needs to be done. I would say it feels like Boeing is pretty culpable in this. Well,
somebody may end up in jail.
Woo!
Let's play a 737M Update 1.
We're going to begin tonight with the investigation into Boeing's 737 MAX 8. The FBI is now involved. CBS News confirms the FBI will assist in looking into how that jet was certified to fly. The Senate panel will hold a hearing next week on aviation safety. Tonight, new details are also emerging about the final 2 days of the Lion Air jet that crashed in Indonesia in October, killing all 189 people on board.
Okay.
So it turns out the FBI is getting involved, and they're looking for indictments, and they're going after Boeing. And actually the FAA people that didn't do their job, apparently. Let's go to clip 2.
By the way, I think that if you look at this in the pure context of the paperwork, this will probably be shown to be pilot error, ultimately. I'm just saying that's usually how these things pack out.
We understand the FBI will be supporting a criminal investigation, also investigating the U.S. Department of Transportation Inspector General's office, and a House committee has launched an investigation into the certification process for the MAX. Employees have been told to retain documents. This as we're learning more about the final minutes of one of the 2 737 MAXs that crashed.
Now, there was, by the way, it looks like it was one of the pitot tubes up in the front of the plane that was defective.
That makes the pitot tube was defective. So
whatever those tubes are.
Right? No. You have the right name, but that's for speed. I thought it was the air stab sensor was faulty.
I think it had to do with the. You can get a false reading on speed if the Venturi has been.
Oh altered. No, you can totally get a false reading on speed.
So that would drop the nose.
It's just. No, a false reading won't drop the nose. It's the software that dropped the nose.
Yeah, the software is no good.
Where did you read this about the pitot tube?
They showed it on the CBS report. They had a circle and an arrow pointing to it.
Well, a pitot tube is very, very simple mechanics. So if these things don't necessarily fail, they can be improperly inspected, and it may have been clogged, or something might have gotten in there during takeoff. They don't really fail easily.
Well, I'm just
no, it's okay. I didn't know this. That's news to me.
737M Update 3.
A sensor malfunction had triggered a new anti-stall system, pushing the nose of the plane down nearly 24 times. Minutes from disaster, the captain asked the first officer to take the controls while he checked the flight manual for a solution. Just before the crash, the first officer is saying, Allah Akbar, God is great, and praying for a miracle. Anthony Roman is a pilot and flight instructor.
Well, the training was insufficient. It's clear that it was insufficient. Pilots should be reactive to emergencies based on their training. It should be almost automatic.
On that same plane's previous flight the day before, the same malfunction occurred. As those pilots fought for control, Bloomberg reports a third pilot hitching a ride in the jump seat correctly identified the problem and told the crew how to stabilize the plane.
The jump seat pilot can see exactly what action they're taking and has a more diagnostic role. So it's very fortunate that he was present.
Yeah, he said cut off the trim stabs. Pull the breaker.
Apparently, yeah, the jump seat pilot knew how to turn off the system, I guess. That's what they reported.
Well, he knew the turning off the system is well known and easy. It's right on the front console. But knowing that to do that is the problem, which should have been trained for. Do you have anything?
Whatever the case,
yeah.
This report continues. I don't have another clip, but it goes on to say that they're going to start looking at Boeing.
Well, after some ponderance, I've concluded something else that is not being discussed about this. This is just the beginning of two different worlds, and it is the world of the people who design software, and I'm going to use the term artificial intelligence, who are arrogant, or people who manage them are arrogant. I don't want to say developers necessarily are arrogant that way, but their thinking was, oh, don't worry.
You can say that.
Their thinking was, don't worry, we're just going to correct this in software. It's all going to be good. And they're not going to call it artificial intelligence, but that's exactly what it is. It's AI that was put in to artificially change behavior of the aircraft's flight because the pilots, didn't need to be trained, shouldn't have to be trained. Don't worry about it. We're in charge. We know what's best for you. To me, this is just another example, and maybe no different than the Waymo killing a pedestrian in Arizona. It's artificial intelligence by arrogant software teams who believe that they can fix everything, and it's always good not to worry.
You're talking, preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
I'm totally all in on that idea.
And
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I'd like to hear how these decisions were made. With Airbus, it's a little more common to have, because the whole thing is fly-by-wire, and it's all done by the computer. But even there, we changed a little few things. We'll just tweak the software, and it'll be fine. We know what we're doing on the ground.
It's like that Airbus at the Paris Air Show that plowed into the forest because the plane was unresponsive, and of course they end up blaming the pilot.
Well,
and everybody figured that they fixed the software later.
And also, just who wants autonomous aircraft? That's still in the cards, is the next generation system where eventually we won't need pilots. I wonder if they're going to say, well, everything was working fine if only the stupid pilots hadn't been in there. I'm just waiting for someone to say that. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, it would have been. It was in its process of correcting, but the pilots kept screwing with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
yeah, I can see that.
Artificial intelligence kills. Hey, that's a bumper sticker.
Software kills.
AI kills. It's true.
Software kills.
Wow. I like blaming AI rather than just blanket
I like blaming software.
Well, I don't think Excel is going to kill me anytime. Well, it might. What am I saying?
Good.
It could actually. All right. A lot of follow-up on Christchurch. Something just as a weird little aside thing. How odd is it to have a shooting at a Muslim mosque in Christchurch? Just as one.
You're the first person that points that out.
It's a well, because I keep writing it down like Muslim mosque in Christchurch. Okay, that's not a brain twister. I wonder if that subliminally registers with anybody. Got a note from one of our Muslim producers. Adam and John, I thought I'd email rather than tweet, as I would rather avoid the possible hassle and backlash of SoshMed. As a brown Muslim person in Southeast Asia, I find it mildly amusing John struggles with understanding the New Zealand accent. I think there's a smiley face behind that statement. I agree, though, with John and view that terrorism acts are traditionally rooted in organized/institutional efforts, and that what occurred in Christchurch does not display such hallmarks. At least not that has been made known. A lone wolf act does indeed inflict terror, but by definition, to call it an act of terrorism is a stretch. As a brown Muslim person, he's highlighting that, find it irritating how any acts of violence by Muslims are readily labeled as terrorist acts. In so doing, and taking the sense of the word above, it implies that Islam as a religion and Muslims as a community are terrorists. I've written to you before and cited examples of what normal majority Muslims sound like, and we are not terrorists. Well, I think we know that. In fact, we despair that these few misguided souls provide fodder for critics to continue denigrating Muslims and our religion. I sense an effort of those concerned to label this as terrorism, almost as a way of getting even by calling out a white man's action equivalent to those of brown Muslims. I think there's something in that as well. Perhaps so they might continue calling the other terrorist acts as well, ? In my view, though, neither should be perpetuated as as in doing so, it gives rise to a sense of anxiety that every violent act is about terrorism, hence the unspoken image of a sinister organization in the background plotting ill for people, but that for the most part, these are just abhorrent acts of violence by individuals.
Spectre.
That's from Aslan. Aslan in Malaysia. Thank you very much, Aslan. See? There's our brown person.
Well, I've known for years since right on 9/11 that there was a large contingent of the Muslim community, like 90+%, that have gone after the Salafists, which is my latest pronunciation for that word.
Yes.
And Wahhabists as being crackpots and nutballs. And they put up websites and they've done all kinds of things and no one pays any attention to it. And then when something happens, everyone says, "Why isn't the Muslim community speaking up about this?" They've been speaking up about it, but nobody pays any attention or cares.
Speaking of Salafists,
the mosque at the heart of the deadly shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand.
This is One American News, which is why it sounds so pukey. I think they're
One American News sounds terrible.
Yeah, I think are they owned by a family? Just one family?
No, it's some little company that has a bunch of. I have to
look into it. All right. Anyway,
I'm
just. This is not like some.
They have a pretty blonde girl on there.
Oh, she's not pretty. She's horrendous. She's horrible to listen to.
Is found to have produced at least 2 radical Islamic terrorists. Reports from 2014 revealed 2 men from Australia and New Zealand were radicalized at the Al Noor Mosque, where shooter Brenton Tarrant killed at least 50 people in Friday's attack. Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed that Christopher Havard and Daryl Jones were both killed in a U.S.-led drone strike during a counterterrorism operation in eastern Yemen. Reports claim the men died when a Predator drone attacked 5 al-Qaeda militants traveling in a convoy on November 19, 2013. Daryl Jones, of New Zealand, grew up in a Christian household, but his parents say he suddenly converted to Islam and changed his name to Muslim bin John.
What? Muslim bin... I want to be called douchebag bin Adam. I think Muslim bin John is funny.
Converted to Islam and changed his name to Muslim bin John. Intelligence reports show that Jones had been in Yemen for quite some time and had even attended a terrorist training camp. His younger brother Nathan converted as well and now runs a Saudi-styled Salafist group, one of the most radical branches of Islam. Meanwhile, Christopher Havard's parents say he specifically told them he first learned of and converted to radical Islam at the Al Noor Mosque.
Now, somehow I doubt the kid who came home and said, "Hey, I'm radical Islam now." You know, there's a lot of radical this, radical that, and I don't think these guys ever did anything radical. They got killed.
Leaders of the mosque have confirmed that Havard was a member and spent nearly all his time there. Not only that, but a Muslim speaker from Indonesia reportedly visited the mosque and preached about violent Islam, with many of the small congregation saying they shared his radical views.
Yeah. So unhelpful, but
not a believable story. But I can't believe there'd be
there.
Some guy that would spend all his time there and be if you've been to any organization ever in your life, there's always some guy who spends all his time there and he is known as a pest.
Yeah.
Is that guy ever going home?
Yeah.
Can you get that guy away from the snacks over there? I mean, it's an honor bar. And he's never puts a quarter in or puts $1 in.
It's that guy.
Snickers.
It's that guy.
It's that guy.
Now, news broke this morning, maybe it was yesterday morning in Australia, about the charge itself. A very odd clerical error was made. As apparently, the way they charged this guy was by saying, okay, you murdered at least one person. They had a name. They put that person on and possible 50 others. I don't know exactly what the process is or exactly what happened. This clip tries to explain it because the interviewer was asking the Minister of Police to say, hey, how did this happen? But apparently in the affidavit or whatever it is they use in New Zealand, they said, all right, we're charging you right away. We know of at least one person. So not only was it a person who's alive, but it also added one extra person to the tally of 50. It was 51. Very confusing.
Good evening, Minister. Before I get to the gun changes, I just need to ask you about some breaking news. The police have confirmed that the person that they have charged, the gunman, the alleged gunman with murdering, is in fact alive. How did that happen?
Look, my understanding is it was an administrative error. It will have no impact whatsoever on the court process. I understand it's been rectified, and onwards and upwards, and let's bring this guy to justice who killed 50 Kiwis.
So when you say it's been rectified, how? What's had to happen?
Well, my understanding is they've got the right name on the one charge. Keep in mind the terrorist has been charged with one account of murder. Obviously, there are a lot more charges to come, and like I said, it has been rectified.
So did he have to appear in court for that, or will there be another court appearance before the scheduled one in April?
Not too sure on that, sorry.
When did the police tell you that they'd made this mistake?
About 10 minutes ago.
That's your first you've heard of it?
First I'd heard of it, yes.
And how did it come to their attention that they had made this error?
So if he heard about it just 10 minutes ago, how does he know it's all been rectified?
Well, he's a spokeshole.
He's full of crap.
Probably. But isn't this odd? And she's really hammering on it, saying, well, essentially, you've got to charge the guy again because you charged him for a murder that was not committed. And I don't know. What is this, a mistrial in New Zealand?
Made this mistake.
About 10 minutes ago.
That's your first you've heard of it?
First I'd heard of it, yes.
And how did it come to their attention that they had made this error?
Again, sorry, you're probably best to talk to Commissioner Bush on that. But all I do know is it will make absolutely no difference to the charges this terrorist faces.
So was there a period of time where you had an individual in jail for a crime or an alleged crime that didn't take place?
Well, it appears that on the charge sheet the wrong name was there. That has been corrected. This terrorist will be held to account for the 50 people he murdered and also the 50 people he tried to murder. So I want New Zealanders to be assured that this terrorist will be held to account.
Will you be talking to them about that? Because it seems to be a fundamental error, doesn't it, on a very, very important investigation.
Yeah, well, I'm not too sure how it happened. I will have a conversation with the Commissioner at some point in time. But like I say, this terrorist will be held to account for the people he murdered.
Terrorist again.
So, people just have to be assured that this has been sorted and nothing will change in terms of the eventual charges this terrorist will face.
All right, so just an oddity. There were a couple other things that people have pointed out. This is from New Zealand News Talk Radio.
I am aware that just through a quirky stroke of timing, there has been a massive armed offenders squad training exercise taking place in Christchurch this week, including today. So if there was any silver lining to a very dark day, the Garden City has had a massive amount of AOS officers in the city for this training exercise.
Isn't that interesting? It's so annoying when this happens. So this was not a training exercise the day before or the week before. This was an exercise that was ongoing during this attack. And these were not just New Zealand special forces or whatever they're called. It was from all over the world, and there was training. And I guess the guys who ultimately apprehended him in his car were not even New Zealand cops. They were just some of these highly trained guys.
Well, then they put the kibosh on the videos. They don't want anyone seeing them.
Well, not only that,
they won't show the guy's face.
It's an offense. You can go to jail for sharing the video, sharing objectionable content, which sounds a lot like unlawful content, which sounds a lot like net neutrality, but that's just me.
Bingo.
And they were not able to do it, which was also fun because you see everywhere. Well, how come Facebook and Twitter couldn't stop the spread of this video? Because it's impossible. I mean, how many copies did you get? I mean, I must have 15 people emailed me a copy of this thing, which, I watched it several times. And man, you can interpret this in so many ways. You can see it however you want to see it, especially when it's a little fuzzy.
I see it as doom.
Yeah, it's not good. Now, just to make things a little nuttier.
Doom, the old game.
Yeah, I know. It's first-person shooter. It's exactly what it was like, moving forward, backward, left, right. And the similarities are uncanny and do not go unnoticed.
If he had a railgun, it would be better.
Or the BFG. So, not only is New Zealand part of Five Eyes, which makes you wonder how good they are, if this guy was just hanging out this terrorist was hanging out on 4chan, 8chan, chatting away. I'm not sure if his manifesto was released hours before he committed this or just minutes. There's no real timeline on that I can discern. But where is Five Eyes? Is supposed to be spying on everybody. This is us. This is the UK. This is New Zealand. This is Australia. Yeah, it's the big boys, the Five Eyes. And all the elites love New Zealand. Everyone's building compounds there for the coming Armageddon and apocalypse. And just a few days before this happened, would you believe it? But John Podesta was in New Zealand speaking to a large group of progressives, which is still unclear exactly where he was doing this and who this group was.
I thought he was in Australia giving the speech.
No, this is New Zealand. Oh, he might have been in Australia for the speech, but he was in New Zealand, and they interviewed him for the news.
In an exclusive TV interview, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, John Podesta, said New Zealand's a big, juicy target, and that hacked information could be weaponized as fake news.
And by the way, this piece is from before the attack.
He was counsellor to President Barack Obama and campaign manager of presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton. That didn't go well.
It was brutal and disappointing, and I think till the very end we were, again, hoping that we would edge this thing out.
During the campaign, tens of thousands of Podesta's emails were hacked by the Russian government.
Russia, if you're listening...
But this is even better. This is how they put this package together. So not only do they claim Russia hacked it, but then they do this.
Edge this thing out.
During the campaign, tens of thousands of Podesta's emails were hacked by the Russian government.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails.
The hack and release on...
Pretty disgusting how they did that.
That is really low. You wonder, the media's bitching and moaning about being called fake news, and they put shit like this together.
Yeah,
it's unconscionable.
Actually, they had a lot of these whipsaws in this piece, which I took out because they just slow us down from the interview with Podesta. But I left this one in because it's like, wow, it's just interesting you'd make that choice.
The 30,000 emails.
The hack and release on WikiLeaks was a major factor in Clinton's loss to Donald Trump.
I love how this is always mentioned. Major part of the loss to Donald Trump. Why? Because of the hack or because of what was in the emails? Never brought up.
Vladimir Putin must be sitting in the Kremlin and saying, this is the best return on investment I ever got. I have a pliant president of the United States.
How worried should New Zealanders be?
I think very worried.
So do you think Russia could do to New Zealand what it did to the United States?
I don't see why they couldn't do it.
Ooh, nice laugh tell. Yeah, I don't see why they couldn't do it.
Of the United States.
How worried should New Zealanders be?
I think very worried.
So do you think Russia could do to New Zealand what it did to the United States?
I don't see why they couldn't do it in some ways. There are other state actors.
It's big, isn't it?
As well. There are other actors, I think, in the region, including China, that may have a high degree of interest in being able to penetrate what the private conversations of people
this is glossed over so easily. Oh, yeah, the Chinese will have a high degree of interest in penetrating private messages to each other. Are they changing the messages, Mr. Podesta? Are they changing the message to say, don't vote for that guy, vote for that guy? Is that how it works?
New Zealand politics and the New Zealand government are looking at.
And as being a member of the Five Eyes group, does that make New Zealand more vulnerable?
I don't think it makes them more vulnerable. It probably makes them...
Hold on a second. What's the logic in being a member of Five Eyes making you more vulnerable?
You would think less vulnerable.
You should be less vulnerable. You got all these hot shots. You got all these hot shots that are running everything. GHCQ and the NSA and everybody.
CIA,
but you're going to be more vulnerable because these guys are incompetent? What are you trying to tell us here?
And that is precisely the question. What are they really trying to tell us here?
New Zealand government are looking at.
And as being a member of the Five Eyes group, does that make New Zealand more vulnerable?
I don't think it makes them more vulnerable. It probably makes them, in some ways, they probably have tighter security, but makes them a juicier target, let's put it that way. What's new is, as I said, is this weaponization, the disinformation, the use of social media to spread discord, lies, dissatisfaction, and that's, I think, what you got to look out for.
What happened to the penetration of private messages?
Hillary Clinton and I were running a child porn ring out of a pizza parlor, which had no basis in anything, but a guy ended up showing up with a gun and shooting a gun off in this pizza parlor.
Do you dismiss that stuff out of hand because it's so bonkers?
Yes, and that's a mistake, I think.
So, oh yeah. So it's just interesting that these elites show up and they're around, and things happen, and I don't know. It's the 8chan and 4chan people. Not this manifesto has caused all kinds of issues. There's infighting because how can it be that this guy, that he did this, but that he did not say anything about the Jews? You see, this is a big problem. It's like that can't be. I'm not kidding. I have report after report and analysis. Here, the biggest right. He makes no mention of Jews, a hot topic related to multiculturalism on the Chans. Israel had made a declaration of war against New Zealand. When was this? It wasn't. I remember reading about this. Here, declaration. Oh, Israel warned New Zealand that UN resolution was declaration of war.
That's not the same as you doing a declaration of war.
Yeah, I think that's written incorrectly on this little sheet I have. The third thing is a Mossad ring has previously been identified in Christchurch, and this apparently came to light after the earthquake. Remember the big earthquake?
Yeah, that was recent.
Yeah, so apparently that's when this Mossad ring was discovered. So,
what's a Mossad ring?
I'm just reading. This is just the stuff that is posted. So this is the words of the 4chan, 8chans. So the shooter makes no mention of Israel, Zionists, or Jews, even though he hangs out on 4 and 8chan. It's really, really odd that someone who feels strongly enough to go shoot up a mosque would leave mention of this out. So they have like. I'm so tired of this 4chan and 8chan. The first 8 messages on each posting are interesting, and then it just devolves into Jew hate. It's just how it goes every single time. Anyway, so a lot of these analyses are in the show notes at nashownotes.com. You can take a look at it. But everyone seems to be confused about this. No one really knows where it's coming from. We have, the wrong people being listed as killed. We've got the elites, the John Podesta hanging out. We've got the... we've got the radicalized guys, whatever that means, whatever that's true or not. We have the training exercise. It's all really good fodder for conspiracy theory.
It sounds like
all of it.
You can pile on.
All of it.
And you left out that it's Trump's fault.
Well, no, I'm saving the best for last. Trevor Noah of The Daily Show. Apparently, they have a YouTube feature which is called Between the Scenes. So when he's recording the show, and it's recorded, it's not live, of course. When there's downtime, when they're resetting lights or getting ready for a guest. I mean, it sometimes could be 20, 25 minutes downtime in between, where a commercial break would be and setting up for the next segment. So they air these things when he's talking to the audience in his it's interesting because it's not quite his television projection, but it's not far from it. But what he said is something we need to hear.
One of the things that got me about this whole thing was people trying to blame Trump for it. And I know this is controversial, but I don't blame Trump. I think in many ways, Trump is similar to climate change in that I don't think you can pin any one storm directly on climate change, but you've got to admit that climate change has an effect on increasing the probability of these storms. I feel like Trump is the same thing. I don't think he's the cause of any of these things, but he does in some way raise the temperature enough that we'll see more of these things happening. What I have started realizing, and it's a scary thought, is that I disagree with people who say Donald Trump inspired this shooter in New Zealand. For me, I feel like Donald Trump is inspired by the same things as the shooter in New Zealand. They're products of the same white supremacy. They believe the same things. You know, Donald Trump and these people run around always saying, oh, he's not a white supremacist. Yeah, but all white supremacists think he's a white supremacist. You know? Well, I'm just saying, if Beyonce and Justin Timberlake think I'm a great dancer, then I'm a great dancer. I mean, it's weird to say that I'm not. But he really is, he's a product of that.
That's a very interesting analogy he used there. So if everyone says, if all the white nationalists say Trump is a white nationalist, he's a white nationalist. Just like if Beyonce and Justin Timberlake would say Trevor Noah was a great dancer, then he'd be a great dancer. Which, of course, he wouldn't be. How does this analogy work?
Wow, it's a mind-boggler.
No, it continues.
You know? Well, I'm just saying, if Beyonce and Justin Timberlake think I'm a great dancer, then I'm a great dancer. I mean, it's weird to say that I'm not. But he really is, he's a product of that. And that's scary because, you know, when you think that he's the figurehead, it makes it almost easier. You just go, if you just get rid of him, then the problem is gone. But I honestly believe that Donald Trump is a product of white supremacy. He's a product of that fear that has been instilled in many white men in America and in and around the world who have been led to believe that they're constantly under assault and that they're being replaced and their place in this world is at risk. You know, believe they're being replaced by black people, Mexican people, Jewish people, whoever they're being told. But it's a weird fear. It's a weird feeling that they have. They believe they're losing even though they're winning.
Weird fear versus threat?
Yeah, I would like to just point out that every single mainstream channel, newspaper, magazine, website in the United States blames white men for everything. So
white cisgendered men, by the way.
Yeah, they add that just for good measure. But, you know, how much longer are you going to say white men are to blame for everything? Because it does make some white men crazy.
But it's a weird fear. It's a weird feeling that they have. They believe they're losing even though they're winning. And it's hard for many of them to see because they are winning. But like in America, people would always argue, yeah, but you look at how jobs have declined. But look at this guy. He's in one of the best countries in the world to live in. So what is his argument? Genuinely, what is his argument? You start to realize that it isn't only economic anxiety.
Have you not seen the white people living in tents in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Austin?
There's a larger narrative that's being spread online to a lot of white men in a very similar style that ISIS spreads its message. And that is that, hey, this is your true destiny. This is what's happening to you. You should be afraid, and this is how you can fight back. And I think Donald Trump is as inspired by that message as the shooter was. That's why he needs his Jeanine Pirros on TV to help him figure out how he feels about things. That's why he's so stressed when they're not on the air. I think so. Baby needs his biddy.
And that's probably how a lot of people think in show business land.
Oh, show business land for sure. A lot of them comics.
Yep. Well, he's a comic.
Turned philosophers.
Yeah. Well, Trevor Noah is a comic. Yes.
Something that I think Jon Stewart, unfortunately, began as a trend. And now you've got every comic that comes from the Stewart camp, which would include Trevor Noah, but I would also put Stephen Colbert and
Bill Maher,
John Oliver, and all these guys who think that they are smarter than. I mean, they're not just comics. They're great social commentators.
Although it's
interesting,
at a high
level.
It's interesting when you listen to Joe Rogan talk about this topic, and he's right in the middle of these comics, and he says, no, they're all doing a bit. And I just don't believe it. He says, now, Bill Maher's doing a bit when he says those things. I'm sorry. So he's completely different. Privately, he says completely different things. This is all a bit.
If there's a bit, it's to tone it down. I mean, that clip you just played from Trevor Noah, you know, he's philosophizing. He's doing analogies he wouldn't normally do on the show where he's doing quick, snappy things. That's kind of a bit. And you yourself said it's kind of the same guy. And I don't see Bill Maher being all of it some different person.
Right.
And most comics are. There's a very few comics out there that are, and if they are different, they're just morose. I mean, like Robin Williams was. He was a very morose character.
Right.
But once he flipped the switch, he was a character of a sort.
By the way, I'm sorry.
I don't buy what Joe Rogan said there.
Neither do I. But I'm just mentioning it.
It's like an excuse.
I did read one analysis of these types of massacres and things that happen and tragedies, and we saw it with the 737 MAX as well. And this was from someone who looks at false flags, conspiracies, propaganda, mind control. And he said, beware of the lone shoe. He says, the lone shoe. And that's the lone
shoe?
The lone shoe. The shot of whatever's going on in the background, whatever carnage, and then the shoe. It's usually a sneaker, a trainer, a shoe, an empty, no foot, just an empty shoe in the foreground is a massive tactic to traumatize people. It has become so connected to traumatic events of human suffering and violent loss of life that it is often placed specifically to not even have people look at what's happening in the background. You see the shoe, you think, oh, crap, one of those.
That's funny. I'll start looking for the lone shoe.
Well, there's a shoe at the so-called crash site of the Indonesian Air 737.
Yeah.
And it's very famous now because that's one of them. You don't see anything else. It's just, bits of rubble, and then you see a lone shoe. So, yeah, the shoe is something to be watched out for in propagandistic photography. Now, if you want
most photographers stage their shots. I'm reminded of that famous shot that was a VJ Day or VE Day, whatever Victory Day it was, of the sailor on Times Square kissing that woman.
Oh, yeah, it was sexual harassment.
And it was called sexual harassment. It's all these things. Oh, rape, somebody said.
Rape, yes, a form of rape, yes.
And then it turned out that the thing was staged by a photographer the day before.
Yeah.
Where he could actually set up his camera and make that stage shot with two actors.
Oh, was it actors? I didn't know it was actors.
No, they were models. There was people he had. He knew these people, and
that's funny.
It was staged. It was completely staged. They probably got paid.
Well, speaking of photography, Australian Football League star Taylor Harris. So they have a women's football league, and they're tough. These are great sports women, sporters. And this Taylor Harris, well, I don't want to say sports women. They're great. They're athletes. That's the word I'm looking for. They're great athletes. And there was this front page picture of Taylor Harris, and she's kicking. Right after she kicks the ball, so she's in the air. It's one of these fantastic action shots. Her left leg is crooked behind her, and her right leg is completely extended. Her foot is above her head because she just walloped this ball down the field. And of course, she's wearing shorts. And yeah, I mean, if you're 12, you go, I can see your crotch. So the AFL, the Australian Football League, tweeted this picture, which is nothing other than a great athletic photo, and some moron retweeted saying, I can see it, but it's affected Miss Harris.
Comments that my family will read and feel concerned for my safety, because these people are behind screens now, but there's no one saying they aren't going to show up at the footy on the weekend. And how do I identify if that was the person that made this vulgar comment directed at me? Because now I'm uncomfortable in my workspace.
I'm uncomfortable in my workspace now.
Well, I think the guy did his job.
Uncomfortable in my workspace.
Uncomfortable in her workspace.
Get out of show business, because that's what soccer is, baby. Show business.
It is.
Now, if you want some real propaganda, the most recent episode, which I no longer watch, but several people emailed me about Madam Secretary.
Yes, I needed to get that because it was supposed to be a real gem of propaganda. It's always been a propagandistic show.
Yes.
And by the way, its ratings have been very slowly dropping.
This is the most...
People they get sick of it.
Yeah. Well, this is the Lear Hollywood Foundation at work, hands down, no doubt about it. Everything shows it. Everything that was written for this specific episode to remind us that climate change is happening. It's killing people. It's humans' fault, but really it's America's fault. So there's a typhoon that that is on its way to hit the island of what is the American islands out there?
Samoa?
No, it's an American
Guam.
protectorate. No, I can't remember. I think it's in the clip. But then, luckily, it veers off towards Nabur, so it goes away from an American protectorate. But first, we'll start with the typhoon, and here it is. It's the typhoon is here.
I mean, have you seen these FEMA numbers? 250-mile-an-hour winds are going to destroy 95% of single-family dwellings with the force of 20,000 Hiroshimas.
Not to mention the storm surge, which is over 40 feet.
The highest point on the Marshalls is 30 feet.
And there's more than 50,000 people.
So that was just straight from Al Gore's fact sheet with the Hiroshima bombs. Except now remember, here's what we have from Al Gore. Al Gore said first,
as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every day.
Okay.
Still makes me laugh.
Well, wait, remember, he came back and then said...
And it now traps as much extra heat energy every day as would be released by 500,000.
So he went from 400,000 to 500,000. But then, let's go back to Madam Secretary.
I mean, have you seen these FEMA numbers? 250-mile-an-hour winds are going to destroy 95% of single-family dwellings with the force of 20,000 Hiroshimas.
So it doesn't even have anything to do with carbon dioxide, but they've just brought in the Hiroshima bombs and upped it. Well, no. Yeah, upped it to 20,000. Wait, is it
Did she say 20,000?
No, that's down. Wait a minute, that's down. Did he say 400? Oh, now I'm going to listen to...
Yeah, he said 400,000.
Okay, so she took it down to 20,000.
Well, it's because, you know why?
Because it's bullshit.
Because the writers in the writing room went, don't you think that's a bit much?
Just
like one writer who's maybe taking a science class.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I think we should revisit this. Right.
Well, so we can't. Maybe one bomb? No.
Well, don't worry. We'll put some more propaganda in the scene with the NASA administrator.
Typhoon Blessing is a freak.
By the way, the typhoon is called Typhoon Blessing, just to make it even funnier.
What? Typhoon Blessing is a freak. It's the most powerful ever 2 months before the official start of typhoon season. Set off alarm bells within the scientific community, so we...
Oh, the scientific community had alarm bells. Whoa!
...been looking. This was taken above the monsoon trough by our new GOES 18 satellite. Maps are like rashes. If it's big, if it's red, it's probably bad.
Yeah, I'm getting hives just looking at it.
Here's a patch of superheated ocean. Rising temperatures are outpacing even our worst-case models, so tropical cyclogenesis is going to get more frequent, more destructive.
Tropical cyclogenesis, write that one down. This is a term that is not used often.
So, blessing isn't a freak, it's the new normal.
Well,
the new normal!
There was a time when we couldn't link specific storms to climate change, but that time is past. Which brings us to Nauru.
Just so you know, it's past now. We could link those. It's past. It's done. It's over. The science is in. Shut up. But now, Nauru, this is where, so it's not no longer headed towards our protectorate. It's headed towards the tiny 10,000 people who live on Nauru.
The survivors need to leave now.
You mean until they rebuild?
No. I mean permanently.
Hang on. You want entire people to just pack up and leave? Right, walls, dikes, levees. We have ways of fighting rising sea levels.
Well, with bedrock, maybe, but this island's built on soft coral. I know the high-frequency wave event could be...
devastating.
Yeah. It's like a tsunami hitting a sandcastle. And given the data, the odds of that happening in the near future are too high for comfort.
Well, thanks for the pep talk.
It's about to get peppier.
Yeah.
Our research and analysis unit ran some simulations. Today it's Nauru. Tomorrow could easily be Jakarta.
Oh, so it can be Jakarta tomorrow. Jakarta. Yeah, Jakarta. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, so they bring in, so 1,000 people are killed on this island, including the president, the whole government, and all that's left is a 23-year-old kid who's the descendant of the president, and he happens to be in Washington studying. So now he has to become the president and also learn that his family and his friends have died, and he lays down the last egg for us.
We're going to get you on a flight to Hawaii that leaves in a few hours. From there, a military plane will take you on to Nauru. I know you didn't ask to be president.
My mom. I can barely breathe because I don't know if she's alive or dead. And you're telling me, you mean I'm supposed to take care of everyone? To help them rebuild?
I'm afraid rebuilding isn't an option.
What are you talking about?
According to our best information, the island of Nauru is no longer habitable. You have to evacuate. I'm sorry.
Evacuate? You spent $100 billion rebuilding New Orleans. I mean, if China can conjure whole islands in the Spratlys, I'm sure we can manage a seagull.
It's not that simple.
It should be. Nauru wouldn't be in this mess if not for the US spewing massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. You owe us.
I know. But we are past the point of no return. Relocation is the only assistance I can offer.
We are all going to die.
I have the follow-up clips to this.
All right.
Is that it?
Well, two things. One, I want to play the 20 seconds of the Lear Hollywood Foundation so you know exactly how they do this.
Before you do that, I want to give you a clip of the day for the U.S. I knew about this. I did not get that clip, but it's a clip of the day.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you for clip of the day. It's all our fault.
Yes, USA. It's all our fault. Here's the Lear Foundation claiming they do this.
So in the course of our work, this is in the 2 years, 11 to 13, 335 storylines that we worked on have been aired. We've worked with 35 networks in the past 4 years, 91 different television shows.
And it just goes on from there. And this is years old. This is probably 15 years old now at this point.
It's old, and they made the point that they're doing climate change stuff for the good of the dumb public.
Shall we?
And so that's what this show is written by those guys.
Shall we pause this and come back after we thank a few people just to keep us on track?
No. I want to continue with this discussion because as we pause it and we're breaking the motion because we've gotten to all this propaganda.
Okay.
Let's listen to what really happens.
Okay.
In terms of propaganda. This is the flooding in Iowa. This is the CBS report. This is the number one.
The Army Corps of Engineers took to the air to get a look at the flooding in Hamburg, Iowa. What they saw stunned them. The entire town of 600 homes covered in water. Major General Scott Spellman. What did you see on your site assessment?
A system that was overwhelmed. So this levee system was built back in the 1950s and 1960s, and it's completely inundated.
According to the Army Corps, 200 miles of levees across 4 states were compromised by this flooding. Repairing them could cost billions. Since the levees failed, is that a failure in design, or are we seeing a weather system that we haven't seen before?
In this part of the basin, this is a weather system that we have not seen before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they're saying because this is the Army Corps of Engineers and their failed levee system, the same that happened, 10, 15 years ago in New Orleans?
Yeah. Huh.
So let's go
it's
on.
It's a weather system. Wait, no, wait. What was this weather system called that we've never seen before? Did it have a name?
Oh, it's just something we've never seen it before. We've never seen anything like this. This is why it happened.
Wouldn't you name it?
Because we had crappy levees, or as the story develops, another element's in play, which apparently, and I've looked into it. I can't get the details, and maybe somebody can help me. But let's go to part 2 of this.
Hamburg is 6 miles from the Missouri River, so minor flooding is common. This is not.
This isn't flooding. This is something else.
Catherine Crane has been Hamburg's mayor for 12 years.
We're not wealthy. We are not wealthy.
How are you going to rebound from this?
We're asking for help. And we're going to build that levee the way we want to build it. And it will be 14 feet tall. And this isn't going to happen again.
Huh.
So that's kind of got me intrigued.
Yeah.
And so then it turns out, and the third part of this clip will bring in a piece of valuable information, which is like a head shaker. Let's play it.
Hamburg built a secondary levee before a major flood in 2011. It kept this area dry. Problem is, the Army Corps of Engineers asked them to lower it to 5 feet high to meet federal regulations, and this flood was 9 feet.
So they had this levee system around the area, which was fine. It was working, but it kept flooding every so often. So they said, we're putting up our own levee because you guys, your levee sucks. So if you see the overhead shots, you see these 2 levees. And then it said they wanted to put one up 14 feet high because this is, why dick around? So they were going to build this, and the Army Corps of Engineers says, no, you can't make it taller than 5 feet because it's against government regulations.
Huh.
And that, to me, is just totally baffling. And so this was a 9-foot surge. So
they're blaming it on climate change.
Yeah, they're blaming
this is disgusting.
poor engineering on climate change.
Wow.
It's a floodplain. Hello.
Well, you're going to get one for this as well for this montage.
Clip of the day.
That's crazy. That's just crazy. Wow. Yes. So that's not so subtle, this propaganda. It's just lies. We have a lot of producers in Iowa, and I have not heard from, I don't think, anyone regarding this. So hopefully they're still in their homes, but let us know.
If you look at this, they're not in those homes in that area.
No. But hey, we got boots on the ground. What is the word? What are people talking about? That's what I'd like to know. We need to know. All right, we will continue with some climate change after the break because I do have some more things that even holdovers from the last show that I think are important to share. And with that, I would like to thank you for your courage in the morning to you, John C., the man who put the C in Cyclogenesis, Dvorak.
In the morning to you, Mr. Adam Curry. All the way in the morning is here to see boots on the ground, feet in the air, subs in the water.
And the dames and nights out there, yes. In the morning to all of the trolls in the troll room, noagendastream.com. You can listen to our show. Enjoy it at your leisure while we do it live on Thursdays and Sundays. And if you feel like it, you can just pop in the chat room and troll away. This is what works. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's annoying, but you are free to do as you wish. noagendastream.com, troll away, trolls. Also in the morning to CSB, 2 in a row. Second piece of art.
Who's this mysterious CSB?
I don't know. It's very mysterious. It's a different account from someone else we know goes by the same letters.
Huh. Well, that person said they were never going to send art in again.
No, so it must be someone else, yes. I even got emails from Europe about this. This was the Join the Podcasting Union with the union fist. And people who saw that listened to the segment and thought it was fantastic. And said, oh, you're so right. This is so idiotic. They're like professional radio guys and who also do their own podcasts. And like, who are these idiots who think that's going to work? So we appreciate CSB and the work that all of our artists do. NoAgendaArtGenerator.com is where you can upload, also view all of the artwork that is made and makes it into products, onto products, T-shirts, mugs through No Agenda Shop, and makes it into the newsletter. And it's also just beautiful to look at. And we appreciate that. Thank you very much, CSB.
Sir Fenwick leads the pack with $1,288.64.
Whoa, what is this about?
Yeah, it's a guy. He's in Emeryville over here. Your podcast, it is his podcast because he's
sure is
the only voice of sanity in a world that is otherwise filled with idiots and morons masquerading as newscasters and reporters and journalists. I cannot begin to tell you how much the healing nature of our show means to me.
Oh, good.
What you both do twice a week on Sundays is so important. This donation of 1288.64 brings me to Viscount. And apparently I could have requested territory with my last donation, but alas, I missed out on that at the time. Well, you can always do it.
Yeah, well, he's doing it today.
Well, yes, he is. If you look closely at the peerage map at the San Francisco Bay Area, the small Emeryville Peninsula has been overlooked. Seeing as my wife and I have an apartment there. Are you in the big tall building? And it contains a marina. Oh, yes, that's where the peninsula is. I believe it should be protected. Please accept my request for the responsibility of this territory. Adam, if you could include my title to reflect the Emeryville claim, Sir Fenwick Black Knight of the NA Roundtable and Magistrate of Emeryville.
I will double check on my peerage crib sheet. I believe that is exactly what it says. Double checking. Yes, you got it. And you shall be awarded that title in our second segment. You definitely. And thank you. I guess this was exactly the number he needed to complete his, what is his Viscount?
Apparently.
Yes. Well, thank you, Sir Fenwick. Highly appreciated. And thank you for your show as well. It is indeed our show.
And we were Viscounting on him. Genoa Osborne, which is, I always thought was a fascinating name. It's Janoa, it's S-E-J-A. You make a note
Janoa?
about that.
Okay, all right.
Jana Noah, not Joe Noah. He's in Urbana, Illinois. Came 333.33. Please forgive me. He sent a note in, which is a pinup girl, 1940, of Hawaiian topless girl holding a ukulele. And then he sent a bumper sticker kind of thing and says, "Boobies make me smile," the big smiley face. Find a place for that. Forgive, and he's got a very nice. He's got a nice. He doesn't do essentially do cursive, but his printing is fabulous. Forgive me, Father and Dvorak, for I have sinned. I have been a douchebag for too long a time and humbly request a de-douching.
Okay.
You've been de-douched.
He's been listening for 3 years after being hit in the mouth by his smoking hot girlfriend, now fiancé. Isn't that interesting?
Yes. What's her name?
Lori, I love you. You're the light of my life. It is time that those who listen together stay together. Call out Solomon as a douchebag. He hit my fiancé in the mouth years ago and still hasn't donated.
And look who got the girl.
Yeah. I have been mooching off jobs karma and decided it's time to give back to the No Agenda community. I recently accepted a civil engineering position in Anchorage, Alaska.
Cool.
Jobs karma works. My fiance and I are currently driving from Oregon to Alaska. The Trans Am Highway, whatever that thing's called.
The
Trans-Canadian Highway, whatever it is.
I like the Trans Am Highway.
Trans Am. To Canada, Oregon to Alaska, and we'll be deep within Canada.
Hey, it's all right, John. We got time.
By the time you read this note, please give us moving karma for our travels.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry.
Well, we'll be listening on the road. Thank you both for all that you do. This is truly the best podcast in the universe. P.S. My fiance and I handpicked this card for you all the way from Maui, where I was born and raised. May the boobs be with you. No jingles, just karma. Wait until the next installment toward my knighthood, Genoa.
You guys sound like a great couple. Sound like people we want to hang out with. And if we're ever in Anchorage, we will look you up for sure. Here's your karma. Thank you.
You've got karma.
I think this name Genoa is dynamite, by the way.
Yeah. It's all right. Yeah.
All right. Lysander Bogert in Utrecht.
I think it's Lysander Bogert, which is, I think, typically female, Lysander. But I'm not sure. It could be a male. But there's no note associated with Lysander? No,
there's no note in my box. Is there any in yours?
No, I looked in my box. My box was empty when I looked in it.
Okay, well,
Lysander. Do I recognize this name? Has Lysander donated before? It's a new. I think because I look at the Dutch name.
Sounds familiar to me. I always think of Bogert, that joint.
Yeah, Bogart.
Yeah, I know that. But when I see the name Bogert,
let me see.
I think the same thing.
Well, only a Bogarter would know how it's a Bogart. No, Lysander. I don't have any.
Whatever. Sir, okay, we'll hear eventually. Sir Husky Bottoms of the Hardwoods, 321.41. Sure. Please accept my donation for your wonderful work in a multi-purpose celebration of the vernal equinox and my birthday, turning 41 on 321.
You got it.
How about that? Hey, hey. I'm still mystified when I hear a lot of the same names doing the majority of the heavy lifting with donations when I know there are thousands of millions of listeners not contributing. My numbers may be off, but you get the idea. Become a producer, everyone. It's truly a satisfying endeavor. I would like some gobbler karma as I'm taking my daughter out turkey hunting this Saturday for the youth opener here in Tennessee. should be doing that in Albany pretty soon. She worked. We all have turkeys indoor in Albany. She worked really hard this winter studying for her Hunter's Ed exam. Hunter's Education exam. Hunter's Ed, huh? So glad Tennessee's doing this, and passed her field day just last month. I started taking her into the field when she was 6, and she's really excited to graduate from being an observer of her dad to now having the responsibility of being behind the firearm.
So what is this Hunter's Ed? It's just gun safety and stuff?
Gun safety we used to have in the high schools in California that we won't have anymore, because now if somebody pulls a gun out, somebody goes, eek! She will turn 12 this year, and I don't know how long she will want to come along. In other words, God shoot for herself. But I always look forward to the early mornings in the field with her, and of course the celebratory stop at the Waffle House on the way home. For jingle requests, may I please have a pew pew pew, stop the hammering, and I'm really stoned. Sir Husky Bottoms of the Hardwoods.
Stop the hammering! Wow, I am really high.
You've got karma.
Everybody should learn how to gun safety. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Superfluous, the Octoroon, $320.
He did the 320 promotion. Nice.
Did the 320 promotion.
Perfect.
Good for him. F Cancer Karma for Gail Van Ostrand, please.
Yes. Happy to oblige for you, sir.
You've got karma.
Yes, very disappointing promotion. We had one, and it involved cancer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thomas Gillickson in Greer, South Carolina, 222.22. Now he'll be our first associate executive producer for show 1122. ITM gents, please accept my value for value donation for the show 1122. Last year I punched my brother Jim Gillickson in the mouth, and he is already a contributing producer and on his way to knighthood.
Well done.
Please gift him an invisible no agenda hat and add him to the birthday list. He celebrates on March 22nd. I don't know if he's on. Maybe he is, because there's yellow there.
I'm sending the hat with a drone. Hold on. Here it comes. And it's off to you. Enjoy your hat.
Is that gas powered?
That's battery.
On another note, I'm calling out Rich from Valparaiso, Indiana, as a douchebag. Rich. I want to thank you for the value I received from the No Agenda show. Adam's OTG clarion call has changed my behavior. And opened my eyes to the sickness from the smartphones and social media that has infected slaves all over the planet.
Ooh. Yes.
I think Adam's going to – I'm putting Adam up for a Nobel Peace Prize. So far this year, I've transited airports in Shanghai, Atlanta, Sao Paulo, London, and Montreal. Everywhere I go, this is true. And it cracks you up if you don't have a phone on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everywhere I go. In fact, I've been taking photos.
Airports are the best, by the way. That's the best place.
The
train stations.
I noticed on the tube line.
Yeah, the tube line. Yeah. Train stations, metros.
Train station. There's slouched over the phone. I see scenes of slouching people with necks craned down, craving endorphins, indicate what a global epidemic this has become. No one is paying attention to events around them anymore. OTG lifestyle tips and deconstruction of the anxiety-inducing MSM from No Agenda have inoculated me against the dark forces that are seeking to enslave us all. Thank you for the greatest podcast in the universe.
Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that to me is a big reward to hear that. To us, to the whole show.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, you're the one that brought the OTG. I mean, of course, I'm cynical about it because I don't.
You're not really an on the grid guy, really.
Right. I just get my email on.
You don't leave the house. You never leave the house. So
I never leave the house.
It doesn't matter.
I would if I could shoot turkeys. But you did you did a public service, I think, and you should continue it. You need to do that segment at least once every other show.
Yeah, well, I might have something today for you, actually.
Well,
so we have some jingles.
But yeah, Jingles, he wants Kellyanne Money Shot, the cyber attack Pew Pew.
Pew again.
There's your
random numbers. Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, can you see the juice?
That's a sure enough money shot. Woo, Jesus. Woo, Lord. Look at that. That's a money shot. Kellyanne Conway is a money shot.
Oh my gosh. Can you see that juice? You've got karma.
Something very lewd about that threesome, that combination. I will mention that.
I think it's meant. I think it's meant to be that. Yes.
Yeah, I think you.
All right, Thomas. Good work.
Gross everyone out. All right. That, by the way, is our only associate executive producer for Show 1122. So I want to thank these folks for producing Show 1122, all of them, and we'll get to the rest of the producers in the next half.
Yes, and these are credits that are extremely valuable, where credits are recognized, which means you can put them in places with like your resume. You can put them on your LinkedIn, which is a kind of an online resume in a way, I guess. And people do search for it. People seem to get jobs with it, but also just display it proudly as being a producer, an executive or associate executive producer of the No Agenda Show. And we'll be thanking more people, more producers, $50 and above in our second segment. And please remember that we always do this show on Thursdays and Sundays, with another one coming up Sunday. And you can support us at Dvorak.org/NA. Now that you've got a little understanding of the Lear Foundation, go out, tell everybody about it, propagate.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Stop the hammering.
Shut up,
So I have an interim clip I want to play.
All right.
What's his name of that show? It's on NPR. It's Money Planet or Money Watch.
Planet Money. Planet Money.
Planet Money.
Planet Money. Yes.
Is that the one Molly Wood was on?
Planet Money.
It's not Planet Money.
Okay, it's Planet Money.
Okay, you say it's Planet Money.
Well, stop the show then, because you ask me, I give you an answer, and then you denounce me.
Well, I just don't remember it being Planet Money. I thought it had more of a money time or money.
Planet Money, NPR. Okay. All right, you believe me now?
So,
11 years of this shit.
They have this. If you ever listen to it, it's very NPR-y.
Yes.
And they had this segment on.
They say bajillion and gajillion a lot on that show, which is highly irritating.
Well, I don't listen to it that much, but they have this segment called Femtech, and they're talking about it, which I think is just bullcrap. And why should they feminize that? And so there's this woman came on who had unbelievable vocal fry, and they asked her to define Femtech, and I've got it on here. I want to play this clip.
At Women, Femtech, it's called. Molly McHugh wrote about it for The Ringer. Molly, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Let's do a little definition of terms here first for me, would you? Femtech, what does that encompass?
Sure.
There's nothing like a good sure in the morning, everybody.
When you ask somebody, what does that encompass? The answer is never
not sure.
Sure.
All right, good one. Good one. Tina and I are even doing this to each other now. How's the house doing? Well, can you tell me how the house is doing? Sure.
Sure.
Back to some climate change stuff, because there is a lot today, or this past few days. And one of the things that was completely snowed under by the Muslim mosque in Christchurch, I'm just going to keep saying that now because it's such a dichotomy, was the big climate strike by the kids, which, the way I understand it, many of these kids organized themselves. Not that they were given any propaganda in the classroom. They came up with it, just autonomously, but that's kind of the idea. And I have 3 clips here. One, 2 clips from Chicago, is a teacher who was at the teacher of, I think, what is 11-year-olds? 11, what is it, 5th grade?
Something
like, I think around 5th grade.
I'll look it up.
And then I have something from the kids. And then I also have a quick compilage from UCLA, all about climate change. And I think that Well, I think there's good news in these clips. I'm very concerned. I think the show in general is concerned about the child abuse of telling children we're going to die. It's going to be 12 years. And, Al Gore training 11-year-olds to go out in front and speak about this death and destruction that we will not reach because adults aren't doing their job. Let's listen to the teacher first with his general impression from the big school strike for climate change in Chicago.
Extinction Rebellion is a nonviolent civil disobedience action group launched in the UK just a few months ago, and it's really spread throughout.
By the way, it's the group is called Extinction Rebellion. That is the term. Extinction Rebellion.
Something like 30 countries in a very short amount of time. So our practice and our mission is very much in alignment with what the students are doing today. So we're here to support them in their work and their bravery and their action, and really using disruption to disrupt the status quo and to basically say that what we're doing now clearly isn't working, and clearly
By the way, I'm always annoyed by this. If it clearly isn't working, even though this last year was fourth warmest in the record books.
Yeah, it means it is working. By the way, I should mention this. The other day, and I did take a picture. I failed to post it, but I will, of the mud flats the other day.
Yes.
They were so far out toward the bay. I've never seen so much mud.
There's proof. Climate change is a hoax.
It sounds like the tides are the sea levels are dropping.
Who knows? But it's clearly not working, says the teacher.
What we're doing now clearly isn't working, and clearly it seems that we're hell-bent on destroying future generations' ability to live on this planet. So
destroying future generations.
That's what by the way, that's the intent.
Yeah.
When you're pushed to a point of crisis, you have to take matters into your own hands in a way that doesn't hurt anyone, but also makes a strong statement. As a teacher, I would say
kids.
Sorry?
It hurts the kids.
Of course it hurts the kids.
Hands in a way that doesn't hurt anyone, but also makes a strong statement. As a teacher, I would say it's very simple. First of all, tell the truth. Tell the truth about what our students face in a developmentally appropriate way. I've seen...
In a developmentally appropriate way. Hey, kid, you're going to die. Hey, kid, it's World War II. Hey, kid, you're doomed. Hey, kid, that's a responsible way, teach.
What our students face in a developmentally appropriate way. I've seen students as young as 9, 10. There's some of my students over there that are, probably 9 years old. I can tell you for a fact
they're going to die.
Not told what to say. They're seeing the same speeches by Greta Thunberg. They're hearing the same headlines. I hear about kids as young as 6 who hear headlines on the news, and they're asking their parents.
Now, notice what this teacher is saying. What is the common theme here that he's talking about in what the kids are learning? And I'll play it again.
The same speeches by Greta Thunberg. They're hearing the same headlines. I hear about kids as young as 6 who hear headlines on the news, and they're asking their parents, what is global warming?
Do you think that the kids are just reading headlines? Because this is all the teacher seems to be talking about. Headlines, headlines, headlines.
What are they talking about with sea level rise? What does that mean? So we need to acknowledge that children are intelligent innately, and that they're curious, and that they want to make sense of the world.
So initially I thought, oh man, this is so horrible. This is one of these teachers who is just propagandizing these children, scaring them. But we're in good luck, because I have definitive proof in the following 2 clips that not only do his kids, this is his actual students, so they're 9 and 10, so they may be 4th grade. These are his students from the same video. Not his students who he has been propagandizing are stupid. The kids aren't learning anything. They may be a headline, but they're completely uninformed about the whole thing.
This is our future we're talking about, even adults' future too. But it's also the humans that are ruining it too. By keeping your car engines on when you're waiting for school. We're all ruining this earth bit by bit, and it's horrible.
Yeah, we really care about being here.
The climate is changing, and there's a small group of people with a large amount of money that are being poops and not recognizing it.
So this is what the children have been taught through headlines, apparently, is is a small group of people with all the money, and they're being poops, and they are the evil ones. This is the teaching. Good work, Teach.
All right. Yeah, they're not really recognizing that the Earth needs our help, and they're kind of like ruining it.
The Earth needs our help. We're kind of like ruining it. They have not. They don't know what they're talking about.
And they're just putting trash everywhere, and they don't care. And it's just, and all they really care about is getting richer on the Earth, and they don't really care about it.
So the kids have been taught that there's a small group of people who are just getting richer off of the Earth and don't give a crap about everybody else. This is not climate science they're being taught.
And we think that, like, we want to be able to have a life without worrying about climate change.
Okay, so the kids really, what you didn't hear is ice caps, sea level, carbon dioxide. You didn't hear any of this. You barely heard fossil fuels. They kind of alluded to it because it's those people who are ruining the Earth, the rich people. Now let's shuttle forward to an older age group. Let's go to the University of California, Los Angeles. This is a compilage from PragerU, who kind of asked the same question about climate change, Green New Deal, and there is good news. These kids are just as uninformed, or should I say, moronic, as their 9-year-old equivalents.
What are your thoughts on climate change?
I think climate change is real. That's the first and foremost thing that you need to establish, because there's a lot of contradiction upon that.
It's really like the big corporations using up like the most of the resources.
Same thing.
Yeah. I don't think we realize how f***ed we are.
It sucks because a lot of people aren't doing, like, our politicians, like, they're not doing enough to, like, actually, like, put, like not, like, stop it, but just...
Listen to this liker. No, this is good. This guy, count
By
the like.
way,
yes.
The first girl, unfortunately, I don't know you can get that clip because you keep losing it. That first girl sounds exactly like that Miss Teen USA from South Carolina who went on and on about maps and such. And just made a fool out of herself. Exact same voice. I'll dig that clip up sometime. Anyway, go on.
It was it Miss? I think it's because it's mislabeled, Miss South Carolina.
I sent it in a couple of times.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. You will have to send it to me again.
Sucks because a lot of people aren't doing, like, our politicians, like, they're not doing enough to, like, actually, like, put, like not, like, stop it, but just, like, keep it, like, prevent it from happening, you know? Like, they're just, like...
It's really...
That's your future senator of California, everybody. Let me just play him again. He's great.
Like, keep it, like, prevent it from happening, you know? Like, they're just, like...
It's really not being taken seriously.
Just put an end to it, you know? Just try to, like, because, like...
Put an end to climate change.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
You think AOC's, like, Green New Deal, is that serious enough?
Yeah, I think the Green New Deal is a great thing.
It's a new deal they push forward. Ocasio-Cortez and some other people push forward to help save the environment. It's like a $93 trillion plan, but it's supposed to save the environment. How does that sound to you?
That sounds like a good thing. Like, if it helps the environment, then, like, it would be a good thing.
She says that we have about 12 years left. What do you think about that estimate?
I'd say, yeah, that's probably right.
What do you guys think about that? Is her estimation good?
I think we got one. I think we're already f***ed as it is.
Just everything's going to
Yeah. She also said that this is like our generation's World War II. What do you think about that?
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
What is one thing that you would say is a great way to stop climate change?
We would have to stop our production of anything that is producing excessive levels of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide thrown in for good measure. Thrown in for good measure.
Stop our production of anything that is producing excessive amounts of plastics.
Just, we need to get the upper echelons to focus in on the main problem at hand,
Yeah. Who do you mean upper echelons? What do you mean?
Like our government, our federal government, just world governments in general.
So, 2 examples of why children of 16 years of age should not be allowed to vote. This is, it's just unbelievable how they're reading headlines. That is all that is going on. Headlines are being read and propagated. You're even guilty of it sometimes, just retweeting something based upon it. Once I've caught you on that. Retweeting something based upon a headline. I
do it on purpose.
This is the world that we've now grown into. Now, but to make it even nuttier, just to make it crazier, Chuck Todd received a Walter Cronkite Award.
For what?
Okay, hold on. This is NBC host Chuck Todd received a coveted Walter Cronkite Award for political journalism for an hour-long feature on climate change. The Norman Lear Center at the USC Annenberg School for Communications gave the award to Todd and his Sunday show, Meet the Press. Let us listen, because we've played this clip before. Let us listen to the opening of that show.
This Sunday, the climate crisis.
Brace yourselves for dangerous heat.
The drought we're in is disastrous. Everyone ought to be worried about it.
Rainfall amounts really are staggering.
About everything we own was destroyed.
Water rushing into the streets.
This is the eye wall hitting right now. The strongest winds.
Annual average temperatures in the U.S. could increase anywhere from 2 to 11 degrees.
2 fast-moving firestorms within miles of each other.
You can see how intense the flames are right now.
The Garden of Eden just turned into gates of hell.
The evidence is everywhere.
You can answer yourself.
The science is settled.
It's ridiculous to say it wouldn't be better if the administration in Washington didn't deny science.
But the politics is not.
Climate change is real, and it is an urgent problem that we need to bear down on.
This morning we'll report on the challenge of climate change, the science, the damage to our environment, the cost, and the politics. Welcome to Sunday and this special edition of Meet the Press.
Now,
NBC News.
Wait for it.
Running show in television history. This is a special edition of Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Good Sunday morning and a happy New Year's weekend to everyone. This morning we're going to do something that we don't often get to do. Dive in on one topic. It's obviously extraordinarily difficult to do this, as the end of this year has proven in the era of Trump. But we're going to take an in-depth look.
in there.
Hold on.
Regardless of that, at a literally earth-changing subject that doesn't get talked about this thoroughly on television news, at least, climate change. But just as important as what we are going to do this hour is what we're not going to do. We're not going to debate climate change, the existence of it. The earth is getting hotter, and human activity is a major cause, period. We're not going to give time to climate deniers. The science is settled, even if political opinion is not.
So he received.
Wait a minute, I know where you're going. So he gets a journalism award for this approach,
for not having another side of the conversation.
Yeah, one-sided conversation. Hey, you get an award for that. You get the Cronkite.
The Walter.
You have one-sided, lopsided, propagandistic presentation, and for this propaganda, we're giving you the Cronkite.
It gets better. The Norman Lear Center said in a statement, in an extraordinary move for a Sunday show, NBC's Meet the Press, moderated by Chuck Todd, devoted an entire hour to the reality of climate change rather than giving airtime to a fake equivalence between science and science deniers.
Wow.
NBC News, ladies and gentlemen. That's great. Congratulations.
That is not journalism.
Congratulations, Chuck, with your coveted award. Coveted.
It'll go right there on the mantle.
Coveted award. Unbelievable. 3 more.
You never even opened up the gate.
The gate is stuck on all this crap that's piled up in front of it. Here is Australian meteorologist Ian Pilmer, and he was on the TVs, and he did what I think was one of the best and succinct explanations of the 97% number of all scientists who are all in. This, I think, will become an evergreen for us.
Well, let's go back to basics. We once had cheap electricity and it was reliable. Now we don't. What has happened? We've had a green movement tell us that there is climate change due to human activity. Not one scientist has ever shown that carbon dioxide emissions by humans drives global warming or climate change. We can also show that the very small amount of carbon dioxide that Australia emits has absolutely no effect globally. In fact, Australia absorbs more carbon dioxide than it emits. So we should put out a hand to Paris saying, pay up, because you're doing it to all sorts of other clowns. Now, that 97% figure derives from a survey done by a chap at the University of Queensland. He's now left, thank God. But you paid for this survey, and you, the taxpayer, paid for a survey done of 10,257 people. 3,146 responded, but out of those 3,146, 77 were selected. And out of the 77, 75 said that humans are driving climate change. Now, that is a survey from hell. That is sheer fraud. And so we have 0.03% of climate scientists whose life depends upon spinning the gloom and doom story are saying, well, humans are driving climate change.
I think it is the explanation. Very succinct. He's got the numbers. He's got where it came from. He's got the percentages. And that's how the 97% number came into play.
Yeah, out of the 76 people.
77. Yes.
77.
Exactly. So where does all this lead? There has been it
leads to a bunch of psycho kids and dummies at UCLA who apparently don't know anything.
And one more.
But by the way, let me stop. I got to stop.
Sure.
I'm old school. I've been about California schools. I know the whole situation. I don't want to say this in any disparaging way. But when I was a kid, they were stupid at UCLA too.
I thought it was just
saying.
Pepperdine.
Now, obviously, the people who listen to our show from UCLA are not.
No, they're smart, obviously.
They're smart.
Hello,
but
of course.
Generally speaking.
Thank you for this old school moment. We feel vindicated. A very important study has come out from the Harvard School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. And I've been waiting for this. We know it's been coming. I've been one of the many voices talking about them, they, thus, whoever they are, spraying shit in the air under the guise of, let's protect the earth, let's geoengineer this sucker. They have come out with a solar geoengineering paper, which, in their paper, proves and claims that using solar geoengineering, also known as chemtrails, works. And that it should be applied, but only under a specific case because they figured out how to make it work and how to make it beneficial. This is Peter Irvine from the Harvard School of Engineering and Applied Sciences on the halving.
Solar geoengineering describes a set of proposals to reflect sunlight to reduce climate change. It can't get us out of the climate problem. We must cut greenhouse gas emissions. And it can't tackle all the risks posed by rising CO2 concentrations. But could a combination of emissions cuts and solar geoengineering be less dangerous than emissions cuts alone? This is the question we address in our paper. It's worth taking a moment to take on a common misunderstanding about solar geoengineering. Previous studies have found that if all warming from rising CO2 was offset by solar geoengineering, there'd be less rain overall. This has led some to worry that it would inevitably cause droughts. However, there are two things to bear in mind here. First, under global warming, there is an increase in global mean rainfall, so something which reverses this could be valuable. Second, while it seems reasonable to assume that less rain means that things are drier, in fact, what matters more for ecosystems and farmers is water availability. That's rainfall minus evaporation. Solar geoengineering tends to reduce rainfall, but it also reduces evaporation. So, depending on what happens to evaporation, a decrease in rainfall may be associated with an increase in water availability. Rather than offsetting all global warming, as most studies of solar geoengineering do, we focus on a scenario where it offsets only half the warming. We are interested in solar geoengineering playing a supporting role to emissions cuts.
I apologize for the audio. It's the Harvard who has put this stupid droning music underneath the guy, and I can't find him speaking about this anywhere else. So the idea is, because solar engineering, often the way they've calculated it, creates droughts, therefore it's not a good idea. But if you use only half, if you try to only solar geoengineer half of the world, or half of all parts of the world, then it has a net plus benefit. Another 1 minute of this, he explains that, and he also gives us a real-world analogy, which I think would be something that the politicians and the news media will be able to use.
So, why stop at halving? If solar geoengineering works so well, why not offset all warming? Well, up until around halving warming, solar geoengineering does reduce overall change in all variables. But after this point, there isn't much improvement for water availability and extreme precipitation. In fact, the fraction of places that see climate change exacerbated grows steeply. Our findings suggest that some of the problems identified in earlier studies, where solar geoengineering offset all warming, were examples of the old adage that the dose makes the poison. The analogy is not perfect, but solar geoengineering is a little like a drug which treats high blood pressure. An overdose would be harmful, but a well-chosen dose could reduce your risks. Of course, it's better to not have high blood pressure in the first place, but once you have it, along with making healthier lifestyle choices, it's worth considering treatments that could lower your risks.
There you go. So I predict we will see some real solar geoengineering taking place.
Well, I recommend people go see the movie Snowpiercer.
For an idea of how that could turn out?
Yeah. Snowpiercer is about a world where this has been done. And they got a lot of water retention in that movie.
And there's just a final thing that came in from the Netherlands. I'd like people to look for that in the show notes under the Green New Deal. The Royal Dutch Meteorological Institute, the KNMI, recently came out with a press release saying the heat waves in Holland have been more frequent, closer together, than 100 years ago. And this threw up a flag for a number of people who track the Royal Dutch Meteorological Institute. They said, yeah, hold on a second. 2 years ago in 2016, you put out a release that you were changing the temperatures measured 100 years ago and lowering them by 2 degrees centigrade. Saying that, yeah, we've looked at it and we think that they were off. Now, you have to know that the guys who did the measurements for this at the Bilt, which is a very famous place, they were like royal appointments. They took great pride in their measurements. So the KNMI just said, you know what, and we got to downgrade that by 2, which of course then changes what is a heat wave.
Yeah. By a lot.
And they will not answer this. In fact, they are very hostile to people questioning this. So who are you to question us?
These are dicks. Dicks.
Big dicks. Exactly.
Now, the funny thing is the measuring devices for temperature is one of the oldest. And when they developed the mercury as a guide, mercury thermometers, they're extremely accurate. Yeah. And it's only when they came with these kind of electronic MEMS and all these other kinds of temperature sensors that don't use mercury, where the accuracy is probably not as good.
I don't even think they had that 100 years ago. They just decided,
no, they used mercury. They had mercury thermometer 100 years ago.
Yeah.
They had those. I don't know when the mercury thermometer was invented, but it had to be much longer.
I would say that. Yeah.
And they're very incredibly accurate but they don't use them. You don't use mercury anymore because it's so deadly.
So that's my Green New Deal update for today. That's what I got for you.
Yeah, well, it's enough to make anybody sick. Well, we've got a couple of things. Oh, we're talking about bull crap. I don't know who's behind it. I didn't have time to look into it, but as soon as I heard this report, and the clip is the word is, I have the word T as TW, so you can look it up that way.
Got it.
But this sounds like a bogus research report financed, I'm guessing, by a coffee company or somebody that is trying to get people from drinking tea.
A study out today says drinking very hot tea increases the risk of getting cancer. Very hot means 140 degrees or above, and they are talking about cancer of the esophagus. This study says those who drink 2 large cups a day have a 90% greater risk, but they caution more research is needed.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Jeez.
Now, is it possible that anything at 140 degrees probably
no, just tea.
The esophagus?
No, it doesn't count for coffee. I'm sure of it.
So I made my tea this morning, and I brought up my magical little meat thermometer. The pointy digital ones are a fantastic product. Everyone should have. I wish I had one 20 years ago. But it's a tremendous thermometer, and it gives you very accurate temperatures. And I stuck it into tea as it was brewing, and at one point the tea, it was 160 degrees. But then after I let it to the point where I thought it was brewed, and then I noticed it was 120.
Yes.
And then when I put milk in it, it was like 116. And that's the temperature I'm drinking my tea, more or less. But I kind of like things tepid as opposed to boiling hot. But this is bull crap. This is bull crap.
It's interesting. I was just thinking about that this morning, how I remember in school, blue jeans will give you cancer. Mom, stop buying blue jeans. Eggs will kill you. Stop eating eggs.
Blue jeans in particular.
Oh, yeah. That will give you ball cancer. All kinds of great things. Mm-hmm.
Well, there was that thing some years ago. There's a couple of things a few years ago that got my attention. One was that all of a sudden cast iron was going to kill you and give you a heart attack.
Oh, yes, I remember this too.
Remember the cast iron one?
Sure.
And that kind of went by the way.
Sure.
And but my favorite one, which I actually wrote about, was in the 80s, and I wrote about it when I was doing op-eds for the Examiner. They had stopped a shipment of grapes coming in from Chile and banished all grape imports because they found a couple of grapes that had been injected with arsenic or cyanide.
John, remember bananas would give you mercury poisoning. I remember this too. Don't stop eating bananas. The mercury poisoning, you're going to die.
And so these grapes they found, and they showed a picture, and they showed a pinprick in 2 grapes in a bunch. And if anyone knows anything about import export, you're not talking about they're bringing in tons of grapes. And so how are you going to find this contaminated grape? So they put the kibosh on. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I suspect something. And then once it was straightened out, then the grapes kept coming in again. But the whole thing was bogus. This is the news media that is suckered by this crap. It's unbelievable to me.
Since you've used the term twice, is it kibosh or kibosh?
Both.
Okay.
I say kibosh, or do I say kibosh?
Right. Well, you're overusing it.
I say kibosh.
You just said kibosh for the second time.
No, I'm glad you pointed it out. I'll try not to say it at all.
All right, it's good. Hey, I learned something that I need to bring up. This is in the spirit of OTG. We went through the process of buying a house. They checked our credit score. Now, checking your credit score when you're buying a house for a mortgage takes 3 days.
Why?
Because they are getting it from FICO. That is the official credit company, as you and I keep discussing it, FICO, which is, it's a corporation. It's the federal, what does it stand for again? It's just
Federal Investigative Corruption Operation.
No, originally the Fair Isaac and Company.
Oh, that's it.
That's originally what it was. They created in San Jose, California. They focused on credit scoring services, mainly for consumer lending, for banks, for people to buy homes. And the FICO score is a measure of consumer credit risk. So, and I got a good score. For me, like 750 is like, wow, where I was. But this is not the same as what people are typically looking at. That is something called your credit score, often known as the Advantage score, which is then a combination of the 3 big ones, which is Equifax. What's the other one?
I don't know.
The 3, TransUnion, and the third one. Now, so this in the back of my mind, it's like, well, that's interesting. So that's kind of, they really went for FICO, and that's something that you could ask for that once a year for free, but that really is your FICO score. That is the official score that the banks use to evaluate credit risk. Now, I've been seeing these commercials for an outfit called Credit Karma.
Yeah.
And Credit Karma, I've watched these. Now, they're useless to play clips from because they're very visual. And the first round of clips, if you'll recall, was usually a friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend, like, what are you doing? I'm checking my credit score. Like, no, don't do it. When you check your score, it goes down. Stop, don't do it. At which point the smart person in the commercial says, oh, no, it never goes down no matter how many times you check your credit score with Credit Karma. Remember, this is not your FICO score. This is your credit score. And we make a lot of noise about the Chinese social score and what they're doing with that. When you know that the largest shareholder in Credit Karma is Google, things start to get a whole different meaning when you see their new round of commercials. The new round shows a person or two people in a shitty-ass apartment with a shitty car, and they look at their credit score, it's 540, a little under 6, and then they touch something on the screen and it magically goes up, and then their car upgrades, and their apartment upgrades, and they do it again and the score goes up, and then they got a nice pad, and then the girlfriend turns into a dog. It's like, wow, my life is, I'm not kidding, a beautiful dog. And my life has changed. Thanks, Credit Karma. But what this app does is it tells you things you should do to increase your credit score so that you will then have more access to cash in the form of loans. The Credit Karma app does the same thing. And right now it's, well, you should maybe change this, do that, but it is controlling people, giving them suggestions on how to live their life so that they will be more credit worthy and can be put into more debt. And when you know that Google, who knows so much about you, not only is a major shareholder, but of course this entire app is tied into every API they can access. This is a very, very evil and destructive company, process, and application. You should not be using this. This is the true social scoring of China, the American version. You've been hoodwinked into thinking this is, it actually says underneath, when you go for an actual loan, your credit score may be significantly different. Because, of course, it is. It's not your FICO score. It's your Advantage credit score from Credit Karma and Google, who are evaluating your entire life. They are evaluating your risk, telling, well, if you don't do this, or, maybe if you did a little bit of fitness. I see you haven't done any workout this week. Maybe if you work out, we could get you a better rate on your insurance. Hey, I've seen that you drive a little too fast sometimes in places where you shouldn't. If you drive a little slower, I can get you a cheaper deal with insurance. This is changing and modifying your behavior to get into more debt.
It is to sell you more stuff. They get a piece of the action, I'm sure, of any insurance special offer.
Insurance, it's just another banking scam. It's just another version of debt. It's just another version of it. So get off of this. And by the way, Elizabeth Warren, where are you? This is completely egregious. There's no disclosure that Google is a part of this outfit.
Well, Elizabeth Warren, who's going after Google and Facebook for some reason.
Yeah, not about this.
She should be all over this. It would be a good example for her to, whatever you just said, which I guess is your OTG segment that you promised.
For today, yes.
Whatever you just said, which, by the way, you're on a roll. Whatever you just said, she should just steal it.
And she can just take a clip and just play it over the speakers.
They don't do that. Have you noticed this?
No, I've noticed this. They don't do that.
I mean, Trump could have a field day if you would take the old Ross Perot approach of showing examples of what he's bitching about. He just says fake news, and he points and he says fake news, and then he goes into a shtick.
Yeah.
If he showed examples, concrete examples,
that's interesting. I did not clip it, but he was on the White House lawn on his way to the Marine One helicopter. Then he was talking about ISIS before he was president and ISIS after he was president, and he held up a piece of paper, a map of Syria, and said, he said, all the red, that's ISIS. Here's ISIS before me. Here's ISIS when I got into office. And of course, the red's almost gone. He did that. It was shitty, but he must have heard us.
Well, the staff is big enough, and we have a big enough reach.
Someone might be saying something.
That someone might be noticing that this is not a bad idea.
At all.
If you go back and look at the old Ross Perot stuff,
Yeah.
his old speeches, he was sitting down. These were his advertisements. He'd sit down behind. I always thought it was fabulous, and I used the word twice today. He'd sit behind a desk, and he would do a little flip card presentation, show, and he'd point at stuff. He had a little pointer, and he'd point and show all these graphs and charts and how it's going to suck.
He actually bought time for that, didn't he?
Yeah, he bought time.
Yeah.
He had plenty of money. And he would show these things, and it was actually educational. It was educational, not actually educational. It was educational. Yeah. And when I watched this, I said, why doesn't everybody do this? People don't mind being informed if it's done with a nice presentation. And Trump could have a ball with this fake news stuff.
Let me tell you about, I think I've mentioned this before. I once had a Ross Perot presentation, a personal, not from him, but from his company, from his people, a presentation. And it was at EDS, that was his company, EDS?
Yeah, EDS. Electronic Data Systems. In
Plano, Texas. And they wanted to buy my company at the time. This is Think New Ideas. So they flew us out to Texas. They put us up in a hotel in Plano and said 8 o'clock in the morning, just be outside. At 8:02, a helicopter lands on the front lawn. We get in. They fly us to downtown Dallas, to the EDS headquarters, land on the roof, go down, get this whole presentation of how fantastic EDS is. Then there's this like a bridge, like a ship's bridge, a viewing chamber, and the curtains open, and down below is the data floor with people in white coats walking around, touching servers. And then we were moved into a movie theater, and the theater shows us the EDS, the Ross Perot, the street, your street of the future, and how everything's going to be fantastic and automated. And then after the movie's over, the screen moved up, and there was the actual street behind it with cars and people and shops. It was mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. He didn't buy my company, but it was a great presentation. He definitely knew what he was doing. Just back to control for 1 second. This is a feature that is being built into Volvos, and in the EU, there is a bill that has, I don't know if it's been introduced, that has not yet passed, and the bill is to make this mandatory in all vehicles in the European Union, and it's already available here in the USA.
Speeding, distraction, and intoxication disturb driver reaction times. We can address this by lowering speed, alerting a driver to a threat, and by detecting an intoxicated driver. Driver monitoring cameras allow the car safety to take action when necessary to keep people safe, inside and outside the car. Say, for example, the cameras register that the driver has taken their eyes off the road for enough time to create a risk. The car would then engage the safety support systems and issue a reminder to drive with care. If the driver doesn't respond to this, the car enters an emergency state. This would also happen if the driver closes their eyes for a long time, doesn't maintain a hold of the steering wheel, or starts to drive erratically. Here, the car reduces its speed and alerts Volvo on call, which immediately contacts the driver. If the driver doesn't respond, or if behavior doesn't improve, an emergency stop is activated, at which time the car safely pulls over to a stop. Volvo on call stays on the line and sends further help if needed.
What I like what they've done here is they've taken the on-call system, which is in many American vehicles, and they've changed it to
OnStar.
Oh, is it OnStar? Oh, shoot. Well, now it's Volvo On Call, which I think is just the same system.
It's a clone, yeah.
And I didn't have time to clip it. There's now a very anxious commercial of this kid on his bike, and then you see the cops.
Yes. I saw that commercial.
Yeah, the cops are trying to pull over some guy who's in a high-speed chase. Stolen car. The kid, you can clearly already feel the kid's going to get hit by this driver with the stolen vehicle. But just in time, the cops call in to OnStar, and they slow the vehicle down to a stop. All sold as benefits to you, but wait until you miss one lease payment, and then see what happens. It'll be on stop for you. It will not start.
Repo.
It will not start. Granted, you should not miss your payment, But maybe it's just for an unpaid
maybe you
bill.
didn't miss your payment. Maybe you sent it in. It was lost.
Exactly.
Or maybe they're just scamming you.
None of this
is up in Washington State that pulled that stunt. They wouldn't take the payment.
Oh, the truck is almost done. So I need to get a vehicle at the end of the year. And I don't. There's not a single car that isn't fucking connected anymore.
Yes, there is.
Which one?
Used Lexuses.
Yeah. A 20-year-old Lexus. Mm-hmm. Well,
most reliable car you'll ever own.
Oh, I'm not disparaging it. It's just I was hoping for something a little newer.
I actually think the older Lexuses are better than the newer ones. Not because of all the computerized crap, but I've been predicting this for years.
Yeah.
That those little black boxes that are in the cars that have been in the cars for a long time, even though they're not connected to the outside world as they are now with the older ones, but they all keep time and data. And there's no reason to put you can't put a GPS in there, having to figure out where you've been, where you've sped. And so when you go in every year, you got to go in and get your car smogged. They look at the box and they find, looks like you were speeding last year in December. Then you get a ticket in the mail.
Yeah.
And you turned yourself in. You've basically, when you buy the car, you'll sign
off on the EULA and user license agreement
that says they can do this, because otherwise you're testifying against yourself, it seems to me. But who cares about that?
Yeah.
So they'll be collecting tons of money off of little violations here and there.
Yes, it all ties into the same thing.
Yeah,
it really does. Quick update, and then if you have anything clip-wise, Bezos' balls update. We were right. His girlfriend's brother,
of course,
sold the pictures and the texts for $200,000.
Good money.
That's great money.
For $200,000?
Yeah,
he should split it with his sister.
Who says he didn't?
Yeah, I know. I've thought about that gag.
Yeah.
Well, we have a couple of interesting things that aren't getting reported much. I think this one, we don't know about the Bolsonaro thing. You have to go to Democracy Now! To find that Trump and Bolsonaro, the head of Brazil, the new Brazilian right-wing guy, they're ganging up so they can attack, or somehow there's some scam going on, so they're going to put foots on the ground in Venezuela.
Hosted Brazil's far-right president, former Army Captain Jair Bolsonaro at the White House Tuesday. Bolsonaro has been dubbed the Trump of the tropics. Trump announced he would designate Brazil a major non-NATO ally, opening the door for Brazil to receive more U.S. military aid. Trump also suggested Brazil could even become a member of NATO. The two leaders both criticized what they call the fake news and discussed increasing efforts to topple Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from office. President Trump threatened to further intensify crippling U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, which is already facing a humanitarian crisis.
But we really haven't done the really tough sanctions yet. We can do the tough sanctions, and all options are open, so we may be doing that. But we haven't done the toughest of sanctions, as you know.
Yeah, he's going to put I don't know what they're going to do. The country's going down the hill. We did hear from our economic hitman.
Can I just do a thing on Venezuela, or do you want to move on?
What, you got any Venezuela stuff?
Yeah, Elliot Abrams, the Iran-Contra asshole who's in charge of the Venezuela operation under John Bolton, I guess. He made a very ill-advised showing at the State Department last week, about a week ago, and he's Matt Lee's in this too, which is really why I wanted to play it. Our boy Matt is back and making trouble in the State Department press briefings. But Elliot Abrams is saying, well, the way this works is Guaido, he will be interim president once he's recognized as president, once Maduro goes. So this interim president stuff, he's not interim president right now. He's nothing. Apparently, the rules were changed or set just so that is a do-over. So if Maduro goes, then the 30-day clock starts ticking for Guaido. And Matt was having none of it.
As to the Venezuelan constitution, the National Assembly has passed a resolution that states that 30-day period of interim presidency will not start ending or counting until the day Nicolas Maduro leaves power. So the 30 days doesn't start now. It starts after Maduro. And that's a resolution of the National Assembly.
When did they did that? After he...
They did that, this is roughly a month ago. We could try to find the date for you.
When he took the mantle of when president, that wasn't there.
That's correct.
Can you do that ex post facto like
when
that?
People ask a question,
that seems like saying, I was elected for 4 years to be president, and then 2 years in, you changed the rules so that your term didn't start, hasn't even started yet.
Well, you don't get a vote because you're not in the National Assembly. But we...
You're not in the National Assembly either.
Does the U.S. view that?
I don't know if you could hear it. Matt says, you're not in the National Assembly either. But I think that's the incorrect statement. These guys...
Yeah, you're right.
These guys, what a bunch of dicks. And what is Trump doing with these a-holes? Then, what is it, Somalia? They're bombing... droning. We got all kinds of stuff.
I got to cover about Somalia bombing.
Oh, you got to. Oh, finally.
But I want to read this note from the economic hitman.
Oh, please do. Yes, he showed up again. He was gone. He was off the radar. OTG, overboard.
He seems to be on the move.
All right.
But he, when I first met this guy, he got the inkling. He didn't know he was an economic hitman. Or whatever he is. But if you just read his notes and listen to his travels, I mean, it's ridiculous. He works for USAID, or used to. My first posting with USAID was in Grenada, soon after the U.S. entered the country and threw out the communist-leaning government of McGill University-educated students.
Yeah, go for the students. It's how they do it here.
Well, they were running the place, apparently. That's the ones that took over. This is the same thing that's going on now.
Yep.
Grenada is very close to Venezuela. Given my 4 years of living in Grenada and working throughout the Caribbean, I took vacations in Caracas and other beautiful locations in Venezuela. I worked in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua as well, and continued to visit Venezuela. There's a huge economic disparity back in the 80s and 90s, which eventually brought about the rise of Hugo Chavez and the flight of the rich to other locations like the U.S. Like the president and former leader of Nicaragua, Chavez started to believe his own press and anointed himself as president for life through the rigging of the electoral system. I've always believed that the people would rise up once they became hungry and ill-treated. Chavez dies, and a new guy equally horrible takes his place. I know people who still live in Venezuela and struggle through each day. I don't see how anyone cannot feel sorry for these people as starvations become pervasive for everyone who does not support Maduro. Hello, Amy Goodman. Anyway. The military, and this is the key to this thing is this. The military is the linchpin to his survival, and if they decided it's time for Maduro to leave, he will. So that's the background. I have seen the same in many countries around the world. So this military thing where Trump tries to...
well, he's going to give him visas?
Yeah, they haven't decided. Apparently, they run the place. He goes on to discuss... he thinks Trump's doing the right thing, even though he makes it clear he doesn't like Trump. He's made that clear before. And then he wants to talk about later. He hasn't sent a note in on this yet. I could go on. When you want to discuss how China is buying votes in the UN, let me know.
Hey, didn't China just offer a no belt, three roads solution to Italy?
Yeah.
I can't. It's the only way to go, really. They can't. The ECB can't bail them out. This is like a saving grace. Have Italy run by the Chinese.
Yeah.
They already own all the fashion houses, so they might as well.
I'm going to show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh yeah, that'd be fab.
Yeah, on No Agenda. In the morning.
Well, we do have a few people to thank for show 111122. Brian Warden starts it off with $123.33. He says, "Hail, buzzed and buzzkill." Or buzzed. Well, that's good. I like it. Anyway, he says, "Pay homage to the beginning of the data surveillance era. I had job interviews with two separate companies Need some Nancy's job karma. We'll give you that at the end. Robert Pajak, 11717. No, I don't have locations on these people. Robert Wood, 7770. Robert Chidji, I think. 6969.
No, 69.99.
Oh, I'm sorry, 69.99. And then comes Clay Alchemist at 69.96. And he's in Grand Rapids. And then Chris in Grafton, Wisconsin at 6633.
He's got a birthday. Let me see. Human Resource Karma, resource number 3, due in 3 weeks, April 8th. And he wants to be on the birthday list. He's turning the magic number 33.
A lot of people do that. Lee Oliver, usually after the 32. Lee Olivares, 64. Karma to the douches. Jordan DeMoss, 5510.
He's got a call out.
I'm sorry. He wants to call out Ryan Rustwood, the old lesbian of Texas. By the way, I get the joke now.
Yeah.
As a douchebag, he's clearly a listener. So he must have had a vasectomy. Old lesbian references usually refer to men
with
who had vasectomies. Because many of them, not all, but many of them begin to look like old lesbians as they get older.
Looking at you, Brushwood.
I got nothing to do with it. Dean Roker, 5510. Phil Dunn, 5150. Too long between donations, I'd say. That's true. Andrew Benz and his wife, didn't mention his wife Mercedes, in Imperial, Missouri, 5005. Carrie Rosenbarker in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The following people, including Carrie, are $50 donors, name and location. He says he came across an article. Do you want to read that as I continue? Robert Case in Mill Spring, North Carolina. Bruce Murray in Seal Beach, California. Scott Lavender in Montgomery, Texas. Brad Taylor in Duval, Washington. Daniel LaBoy in Bath, Michigan. David Timmons in Oklahoma City, OK. Nick Zumkowski in Campbell, California. Sir Daniel Baronet of the Bayonet.
He says, see emails. Or something we need to see about that?
I'll go check. It's in Mountain Home, Idaho. Oh, yeah, there is something because I did check and it was very short. I have to check again. Unfortunately, I checked on the other computer. It's see email. Well, I don't know if I can. Sir Daniel.
Well, let's, anyway, if it's anything we need to do, we can do it on the next one. Yeah. George
Wuchit in Universal City, Texas, and Andrew Gusick in Greensboro, North Carolina. I do remember the email. It wasn't really just something he did, a note, and it didn't have too much to do with the show. So,
Carrie Rosenbarker from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Reason says it's been a while since I donated, but I came across an article that reminded me that Adam is from the future. You asked me to read it. There it is. When he said blockchain is the future of financial transactions, and he has a link about IBM saying, "Hey, this is they have a 72 country blockchain wire service that they're putting in place now. Everyone's competing for that. Everybody wants to get in." I have a correction. I accidentally thanked Derek from dlawlesshardware.com for the cool non-stick hardware that I've received. That was from someone else, and he said, "Oh no, just so you know that that wasn't me." And now I can't find who gave me that fabulous non-stick hooks that can hold up to 40 pounds. So if you could email me again, I'd like to thank you for it. And a cult fan says on show 1111, I requested Jobs Karma, but it didn't go through. No big deal. But if you could you throw Nathan Lee Miller Foster, associate executive producer of episode 1111, Jobs Karma? That would be appreciated. And I think we should do that.
Jobs, 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 and jobs. Let's vote for jobs. You've got karma.
And I'd like to just hand out some general goat karma for everybody who needs it, and there are people out there.
You've got karma.
It is the the 21st of March, 2019. Here's our birthday list. Tom Gilkison says happy birthday to his brother Jim. Celebrates on the 22nd. That'll be tomorrow. Chris is turning the magic 33 today. And Sir Husky Bottoms of the Hard Words turns 41 years old today. And we say happy birthday from everybody here at the best podcast in the universe.
Title changes. Turn and face the slave. Title changes. Don't want to be a douchebag.
No Nightings today, which is always sad. However, we do have that great title upgrade to Viscount. Sir Fenwick becomes Sir Fenwick Black Knight of the No Agenda Roundtable and Magistrate of Emeryville, and we congratulate him and thank him for his huge support for today's program. Everyone, thank you so much for being a producer of the No Agenda Show. Also, those of you who came in under $50, that is always our cutoff number. People who like to be anonymous. I did peek, and I saw one $32 donation, so the newsletter was... It was
really
fun to read.
This is a big flop.
Fun to read. Flop.
A couple of notes. I got one from Derek B. in Truck Driver, and he says I'm overestimating the power of the Teamsters. Most truck drivers haven't got any power anymore. They don't know whether they own their own rigs or not, and they may not be the ones vandalizing the auto trucks, which he doesn't see coming for decades.
No,
anyway.
I've ever since you said that, and I just thought about Teamsters in general. But yeah, there's no shoot. I would probably be against this. I would probably be complicit in stopping this lunacy. Just look at the 737. We don't need vehicles of any kind driving, flying, or floating that have this software. Without
software kills.
AI kills.
Lou wrote in talking about some cashless stuff I've been meaning to discuss. Apparently, they're having cashless stadiums and some other things. So I'm driving down.
Yeah,
I'm driving down the street with my daughter, and we go past this place. It used to be a really cool hamburger place called Oscar's back in the day that was changed to some green vegan place. And she mentioned the place has gone cashless. And I said, why are they going cashless? And then the obvious. I didn't really think about this before that. It's to keep the homeless from coming in and buying a bottle of water and then using the bathroom. The whole cashless movement is to screw the homeless over.
I don't know if that's the whole movement.
I think there's a lot of it.
How about just tracking your ass? Square?
I don't think these little vegan place cares to track anybody. The idea is to keep the homeless from buying a bottle of water and then taking a whiz. So that's why the streets are filled with poop. Between not being able to go into a place and then between Twitter taking all the porta potties away in San Francisco because it was unsightly, we have a poop problem and a poop map of San Francisco, which you don't talk about enough.
Have you seen the KOMO documentary, 1 hour long, called Seattle is Dying?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
Yeah, I put it in the show notes. You could, it's on YouTube. It is. Oh man, you thought San Francisco was bad? It's a real eye opener. Yeah, it makes you kind of sad.
Well, Seattle's kind of San Francisco north.
Yes. I have a little 5G update that I've been sitting on. The FCC, just so you know, 5G, it's a bunch of protocols, and I'm not too worried about that part, but it's the frequencies that may be used. Seems like a lot of, like AT&T is, they're calling it 5G, 5GE or something of this ilk. But it's really not, I'm not too worried about it. It's once you start to get up into the 30 gigahertz is when you need to be careful about how much power you're pumping into people's heads. The FCC has just opened up for auction, get this, 95 gigahertz to 3 terahertz spectrum for what they say will be 6 or 7G or whatever is next. This is not good.
If there's anyone left alive.
It's like, you won't be using that. And there's a report that's been going on for a few weeks in California, Ripon, California, about a cell tower. And at first you think, well, it's 4G. Could it really be the cell tower? It's 3G. But then at the end of the report, we get clued in.
Cell phone towers are spread throughout the community, but it's this particular one that parents say
usually tell us it's 100% environmental, the type of tumor he has.
Monica Ferruli's son Mason was the second child to be diagnosed with cancer in just 3 years at Weston Elementary. He was 10 years old and walked by this cell phone tower daily.
It's undescribable. It's really tough.
That's one of the hardest things I've been through.
Joe Prime's son Kyle was the first, diagnosed with kidney cancer in 2016, and 2 more kids were diagnosed this year.
It just seems like a coincidence is no longer a reason for all this illness.
They believe it's this cell phone tower that's harming their kids.
These kids shouldn't be guinea pigs, and we shouldn't be taking chances with the children's lives.
The district has had several tests done saying the tower is safe and meets federal regulations, but some families weren't convinced and hired an expert.
I wouldn't send my kids there at all. It absolutely is dangerous.
Eric Windheim is an electromagnetic radiation specialist and found levels far higher than the district's expert.
Children that are still developing and their cells are still dividing is the worst possible time of their life to be exposed.
He says it's not just a cell tower, it transmits wireless frequencies.
Instead of only going 300 yards like regular Wi-Fi, WiMAX can go 30 miles.
Parents want the mast removed, but the district won't budge.
So it's not just a cell tower. This is a WiMAX. This is a whole different deal, which is
Who the hell
poorly
uses
reported.
WiMAX?
People in rural areas who still are jacked into that because there wasn't fiber at the time, or rural-esque areas. Yeah, WiMAX. That's the that was the high power blowing Wi-Fi everywhere.
It never worked.
Well, no, but
it worked if you had every piece of equipment up and down the line was identical, made by the same exact manufacturer. That was the problem. Nothing was interchangeable.
Yeah.
I do have I think my favorite clip of the day. It's only 21 seconds. This is just recently, supposedly. I don't know that if this has been doctored. I cannot see any evidence of it. It's floating around. It gets suppressed a lot. It's supposed to be recently, and it's supposed to be Obama speaking to an audience in Africa.
3 years ago, I visited Kenya as the first sitting American president to come from Kenya.
And well, let me just help you out. Let me just help you out of the dream. We played this clip on episode 11. I'm sorry, episode 1054, and it's old. So this is not something new. It's just research.
Well, that's what I
it's all right. No, these things happen. It happens to me all the time, and we get called on it. This time, I was able to call you on it. So.
Now, here is the clip about Somalia killing people, or Americans killing people in Somalia.
They found U.S. airstrikes have killed 14 civilians in Somalia since 2017, despite government officials maintaining there have been no civilian casualties. U.S. air raids in Somalia have steadily increased since Trump came to office and authorized the use of targeted strikes against suspected al-Shabaab militants. According to the think tank New America, at least 252 people have been killed in around 24 U.S. airstrikes in Somalia so far this year. The airstrikes could amount to violations of international humanitarian law and even constitute war crimes, according to Amnesty International.
Well, this is, we talked about this on 1 or 2 shows ago when it just wasn't showing up. And this is on the list. This is on the Wes Clark 7. This was always intended to happen, I guess. And now they're doing it, whoever they is. But it's very annoying.
How is it a war crime when Obama's droning American citizens, actually? Not. No one ever mentioned when Obama was doing all the droning and his kill list and all the rest. Nobody ever brought up war crimes.
But the droning hasn't stopped.
No, it hasn't stopped. But why is the war crime thing only being
Do I really need to explain why? I mean, do you need you need to listen? Okay, it's very simple. Here it comes.
No, I don't want to hear
it. Here it comes. Orange man bad.
That's about it.
Now entering second half of show.
Hey, second half of show, everybody. Welcome. This is where we talk about things that are a little bit offbeat. Buzz Aldrin Walked on the moon.
Yeah, I got this.
Walked on the moon. You got this with this kid, this 8-year-old kid?
I heard this clip and deconstructed it too.
You deconstructed
I'll tell you right away, it's been misconstrued.
I know, but that's why I like it. It just depends on how you listen to what he's saying as an 8-year-old asks him the question.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
Now, whether it's a mistake or not, he literally says, we didn't go in the beginning of this.
We didn't go there.
We didn't go there.
What he meant by it was we didn't go there. We didn't continue the process that we had started.
Yeah, I know that's what you think it means. But I'm
sure that if you asked him, that's what he'd think it means too. Because he's the most adamant.
No, he will punch you in the face if you ask it.
He will punch you in the nose.
He will punch you in the face.
Now entering second half of show.
I suggest people watch the whole clip. I put it in the show notes. It could also be the truth wants to come out. I mean, you can't deny that's a possibility.
Well, that's our thesis of the entire No Agenda show.
Yes, and I would be a lot less irked about the whole did we go or not, did we land or not, if NASA hadn't lost all of the recordings of the moon landing and the telemetry data. I would have been a little less irked about it.
So the EPA put this new guy, Wheeler, and everybody hates him now because he wants to make the priority of the EPA currently, which I think it should have always been, clean drinking water.
Yes.
And so, no, this is no good. It has to be about climate change. Everything has to be about climate change.
Oh, now screw your water.
Hardly covered, by the way, in the media, according to that report that Chuck Todd got an award for.
Yeah.
But let's play Wheeler EPA drinking water and see how they play it on CBS.
Andrew Wheeler was confirmed last month as head of the Environmental Protection Agency. Today, he announced what he views as the greatest threat to the environment.
As the administrator of the U.S. EPA, I believe that water issues are the largest and most immediate environmental and public health issue affecting the world right now. By water issues, I mean primarily clean and safe drinking water, marine litter, and water infrastructure.
Wheeler says drinking water is a bigger global threat than climate change. Those comments are drawing scrutiny by critics who say Wheeler's past as a coal lobbyist is tainting his view. Wheeler sat down to explain his reasoning with CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. It's the administrator's first network interview since his confirmation last month.
The drinking water today worldwide is probably the biggest environmental threat we have.
If I hear you correctly, you're saying all of this tension, energy, politics over on climate change is essentially misguided.
We have 1,000 children die every day worldwide because they don't have safe drinking water. That's a crisis that I think we can solve. Most of the threats from climate change are 50 to 75 years out. What we need to do is make sure that the people who are dying today from lack of having drinking water in third world countries, that problem is addressed.
This was certainly during the Obama administration. I want to say the Bush administration, as far back as I can remember, I heard politicians continuously talk about the next wars will be about water. This has been huge on the radar until Trump.
Yeah, and then the Bush compound in Paraguay, I think, is on a big aquifer. People think that's some sort of a thing. Yeah. There'll be wars over water. This guy just wants to clean up everybody's act.
How about Flint?
I don't see anything wrong with this, but meanwhile, they're protesting him.
Oh,
and then they use the slur that he was
bad. Yeah.
He was the slur that he was a coal lobbyist, and therefore he's conflicted.
Yeah, that has something to do with water.
In fact, coal tailings from some of these mining operations contaminate water just as much as anything. So there's doesn't look like a conflict of interest to me. It's on the right track. But okay, bad.
Do you remember the movie Wag the Dog, fine movie with Dustin Hoffman about media distraction created specifically for, to distract information from the president about the president? Do you remember what country they created this distraction in?
It was some country. I think it was a country in the Balkans.
Albania.
Albanian police have fired tear gas and used water cannon in an effort to disperse protesters trying to break into parliament. The violence came after several thousand people took part in a peaceful protest to call for early elections. The protests began last month amid opposition allegations of corruption and electoral fraud. Both the European Union and the United States have urged all sides to refrain from violence. Some protesters and police suffered minor injuries. Albania hopes to start talks in June on joining the European Union, but the EU says more needs to be done to fight corruption and organised crime.
Just thought it was interesting. You never hear about Albania. All of a sudden, there they are.
Well, you hear about the Albanian mafia in certain stories.
And this Jeffrey Epstein court battle is becoming very interesting. The court, now this is Jeffrey Epstein, who got this sweetheart deal for being a sex offender, abuser, rapist, pedophile. I think it's okay for me to say these things. That seems like he was convicted for, but he got a sweetheart deal where he only had to be in jail 12 hours a day, which is pretty much dinner through breakfast, and then he would go about his merry way and just be around living as a normal guy. So the court is now preparing to unseal documents regarding this conviction. Part of it is Acosta, who is now in the Trump administration, was the lawyer at the time. We also have...
And he was the judge.
Was he the judge? He might have been the... Well, more interesting is the reason why he got this leniency, Jeffrey Epstein, was because the FBI requested it, saying that he was involved in some investigations the FBI were doing, and they wanted leniency for him. Yeah. Salient point, director of the FBI at the time, Robert Mueller. But now, 2 mystery parties are seeking secrecy and do not want these documents to be completely opened up because it could open people up to false accusations just because they're mentioned in some of the documents. And we don't know who this is, who these mystery parties are that seek the secrecy or the not unsealing these documents. Dershowitz has been implicated as... by some of the witnesses in this case. It's becoming very, very fun.
It's going nowhere. I guarantee it.
All right. Well, a girl can dream, John.
Well,
girl can dream.
Keep dreaming.
Hey, Paul Ryan joins the board of the Fox Corporation. How about that?
The one that's left over, Fox, not Fox B or whatever that new stock is.
Fox A, I think it is. Yes, no, he's on the board of Fox A, the new corporation. What does that include now? Doesn't that include Fox News? Didn't they keep that?
Yeah, I think they kept as Fox News.
What the hell? I mean, what's Paul Ryan going to do? Trump hates him. So if they thought that was a smart move, I'd say no.
Oh, no, I think they're off the deep end because they sidelined Jeanine Pirro, our friend, because she's got all these horrible things to say about Muslims.
Yeah.
But here's her comments. I got the thing that she got sidelined for saying this particular commentary.
Think about it. Omar wears a hijab. Which according to the...
Omar wears a hijab. Hey, Alice, will you look at that woman? She's wearing a hijab.
Think about it. Omar wears a hijab, which according to the Quran 33:59 tells women to cover so they won't get molested. Is her adherence to this Islamic doctrine indicative of her adherence to Sharia law, which in itself is antithetical to the United States Constitution?
He was thrown off for the Look, if she worked
for mispronouncing,
she mispronounced hijab. That's why she got fired. Is that Heee? Is it 3 E's and then a jab? Hijab. What an idiot.
She'll go on the
jab. Can we do that as a show title with enough ease? The jab.
So, that's a funny idea, though.
Yeah.
The story that I thought was the most interesting, because some kid with some nerve, this chickenpox story that CBS played in Kentucky. There's some people in Kentucky that don't want, there's vaccines are important for certain things. But I think now they wanted you to take out. We're 62 of them. A little kid, to be jabbed 62.
Yeah,
shots.
but before you're in school, you've had 62. Or we used to get 3, a booster, done, shut up. Mumps, you got it. Chickenpox, you got it.
Diphtheria was one of them. Whooping cough was another problem.
Yeah.
I think mumps was maybe in the shot.
Well,
I never had a mump shot.
Let's just, whatever this clip is, I just want to say that the majority of these vaccines clearly don't work because they're intended to create a herd mentality, and without the herd mentality, it doesn't work. And these things don't work.
It's called herd immunity, not herd mentality.
It's the same thing in this case. It's in this case the same thing. Herd immunity. Thank you for correcting me. And I'm not against vaccines. I got my polio vaccines. My kid got polio vaccine.
I had a smallpox vaccine.
Yeah, I had when I went to Iraq. I don't know what the military shot me up with. Nanobots,
some horrible stuff.
Nanobots, yellow fever, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but screw this. You're poisoning these children with all kinds of stuff that doesn't appear to work.
Well, here's a story about this kid who refuses to get a chickenpox shot, and he doesn't have chickenpox, but he refused to get the shot. The story's about, and he summarizes at the very end. He finally makes everything clear, at least to me, his real gripe.
Students at Assumption Academy went to school today, but Jerome Kunkel stayed home again.
Yes, I'm missing the next 2 weeks. That's what the health department says, that I'm not allowed to go to school.
Because Jerome, a senior on the basketball team, has refused to get vaccinated on religious grounds, despite a chickenpox outbreak at his Catholic school.
It's derived from aborted fetal cells, and as a Catholic, we do not believe in abortion. We believe that's morally wrong, and it would go against my conscience.
The chickenpox vaccine relies on cell lines from 2 fetuses aborted in the 1960s. No further abortions were involved in continuing those lines, and the Vatican has given the vaccine its blessing. The Northern Kentucky Health Department has banned unvaccinated students until the outbreak is contained, and that could be up to 3 weeks after the last case is diagnosed. Ridiculous, says Bill Kunkel, Jerome's dad.
Do you think that this is just sort of a big, unfeeling government?
They act as tyrants. So the Kunkels are suing. Jerome, they say, is a victim of government overreach.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about the chickenpox here. This isn't some deadly disease.
But pediatrician Christopher Bowling says the vaccines are necessary for public health.
Before the vaccine was around, hundreds of people would die yearly.
What? What?
So,
that's a good thing?
The kid nails it by saying, hey, it's chicken pox. We're not talking about, the plague.
Yes.
Well, the other thing is, there's a couple of things I learned. One, I didn't know that was from some old fetal cells.
I didn't know that either. No,
from the 60s, and they're still using the same culture.
I didn't know that.
And I never got I had chicken pox.
I had chicken pox.
Everybody had chicken pox. And okay, maybe I think more people die from these shots. 100 people is what he said. 100 a year would die from chicken pox somehow, which I wonder about that. It's minor. But I think the shots, there's got to be documentation for more than 100 people dying from the shots themselves.
Well, all I know is that on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it was probably a repeat, but they all got the chicken pox, so that's the Lear Foundation needs to move in on these people because they're not on board with the program.
I don't know. It seems to me that the kid, if they had a big breakout of chicken pox, the vaccine's not working because supposedly you have to have the shot to go to the school, and then the school had a breakout. How does that work?
I don't know, man, but I know...
Not even injecting anything but water?
I know for sure that we'll be called anti-vaxxers after this segment. There's no doubt about that. Regardless of what we said. And that brings this show to a conclusion. We do return on Sunday. Be on the lookout for big problems in France. The army should be called out. And thank you, Brian Longenecker, Danny Luce, Leo LaPuke, and Jesse Coy Nelson for end-of-show mixes. Coming to you from downtown Austin, Texas, capital of the Drone Star State, in the 5x9 Cludio, FEMA Region number 6 in the Common Law Condo. In the morning, everybody, I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, I'm John C. Dvorak.
We return on Sunday. Remember us at Dvorak.org/NA. Until then, adios, mofos! And such.
I started a joke which started the whole world crying. But I didn't see that the joke was on me.
He wrote under the pseudonym Psychedelic Warlord in Cult of the Dead Cow Communications. For you now is a dramatic reading of Beto O'Rourke's poem called The Song of the Cow.
I need a butt shine. Right now, you are holy, O sacred cow. I thirst for you. Provide milk. Buff my balls. Love the cow. Wax my ass. Scrub my balls. Oh, milky wonder, sing for us once more. Thrust your hooves up my analytic passage. Settle down. You're starting to freak me out. Ooh. Holy cow. Holy cow. Provider of cheese and other wonderful dairy products. Praise the doughboy at the pizza shop. Love the oxen dung.
Well, I'm gonna vote for him now.
I won't vote for him.
Cowabunga, dude!
You ever taken acid?
No, I have never taken acid. Thanks for asking.
Hey, go! Get on back! Please let me! Holy cow!
Yeah, and WhatsApp, Tinder. So people were having...
Tinder? Was Tinder down?
Tell us about it. Well, get some likes. I staged a release. Now it's built in. To defeat to a different country because we creep. And then the whole college thing. Yep. How much of school I'm gonna attend, but I'm gonna go in and talk to my deans. Went down for I think about this. Now it's built in. I do want the experience of like game days, partying. Oh, I'm so sorry. Game days, partying.
I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm leaving to go defeat. WhatsApp, Tinder, a dorm, roommate. Now it's built in. Days partying, and talk to my deans and every traveling to a different country. Age to really get some likes. I'm leaving to go to feet. And then the whole college thing. Yep, really nice photo. Oh, I'm so sorry. For work and partying. I'll be in New York a bunch of partying. I poetry because I'm creating something for this country and get some likes. I staged a really and cool. I'm gonna attend, but I'm gonna go in and talk to my deans and everyone who people are having.
Was Tinder down?
Of like game days.
I have no idea.
I don't really care about school. What? I staged a really experience of like game days. So we made it in the dorm. I'm gonna get some lunch, like game days. This is my new ring light. I don't really care about school. Tinder. 9 degrees out. Hi everybody. What? I don't really care about school.
Fuck school. Back from Fiji.
Keep up with twice a week posting.
Like I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago. You try. You do it. You try. You do it. You're driving the agenda. I'm at least trying. You're driving the agenda. Oh, it's vague. I'm at least trying. I don't care anymore. I'm at least trying. I don't care anymore. We're like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, you do it. We're like, oh, it's unrealistic. Like I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago. You're driving the agenda. I'm at least trying. You try. We're like, oh, it's unrealistic. You try. You do it. Right. You try. You do it. Right. I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago, and it's creating all of this conversation. Why? Because no one else has even tried. Because no one else has even tried. You do it. Do it.
The best podcast in the universe.
Mofo.
Dvorak.org/NA